This is recognized.
Welcome to Signature TV News. I am Charles Pius. In the headlines, federal government suspends 2 correctional service officers over Bobrisky's controversial detention. Senate passes bill on establishment of Southwest Development Commission. Biden announces $8 billion in military aid for Ukraine, and the European Union calls for a ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon at the UN General Assembly. Details in a moment. The federal government has suspended 2 officers at the Kirikiri Medium Custodial Center in Lagos. The officers were suspended following a voice note shared by Martins Ose, popularly known as Very Dark Man, in which Idris Okoneye, known as Bobrisky, claimed that after his conviction and sentencing for abuse of the Naira notes in April, his godfather, in collaboration with the Comptroller General of the Nigerian Correctional Service, arranged for him to serve 6 months' sentence in a private apartment. Those suspended, according to a memo on Thursday, which was signed by the Secretary of the Civil Defense, Correctional, Fire and Immigration Services Boards, Jafaru Ahmed, are the Deputy Comptroller of Corrections in charge of Medium Security Custodial Center, Kirikiri, Lagos State, Michael Anugwa, and Deputy Comptroller of the Corrections in charge of MSCC, Kirikiri, Lagos, Sikiru Adekunle. According to the memo, an officer serving at the MCC or MSCC in Afipo, Ebonyi State, Obule Obina, was suspended for accompanying an inmate out of the facility. Another senior officer of the service serving at the Kuje MSCC, Eloafonsi Ikechukwu, was equally suspended for allegedly receiving money on behalf of an inmate. Ahmed, however, said their suspension was to allow proper investigation into the allegations against them. And similarly, the House of Representatives has called for an investigation into the controversy surrounding the detention of Idris Okoneye, popularly known as Bobrisky. Honorable Patrick Umar, representing Ikotekmene Esen Udim Obot Akare Federal Constituency, on Thursday moved a motion on the need to investigate these disturbing allegations of corruption against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Nigerian Correctional Service in order to save Nigeria from public ridicule.
Mr. Speaker, my amendment goes thus, that the committees on financial crimes, the committees on reformatory institutions join and investigate this matter. There should be a joint committee on financial crimes and reformatory institutions.
Supporting the motion, Honorable Olumide Oshoba, representing Abeokuta North Obafemi Owode Odede Federal Constituency, proposed an amendment that the House Committee on Financial Crimes and that of reformatory institutions should carry out the investigation.
Mr. Speaker, my amendment goes thus, that the committees on financial crimes, the committees on reformatory institutions join and investigate this matter. There should be a joint committee on Financial Crimes and Reformatory Institutions.
The motion was adopted as amended and referred to the House Committee on Financial Crimes as well as that on reformatory institutions for further actions.
Those in support of this motion as amended should say aye.
Aye.
Those against should say nay. That is it. This motion is referred to the Committees on Financial Crimes and which other one? Reformatory Institutions for further legislative action.
The Senate on Thursday passed a bill seeking to establish the Southwest Development Commission following the adoption of the report of the Committee on Special Duties presented by the chairman Kaka Shehu from Borno State. Shehu, in his presentation, said the bill was designed to drive the social-economic development of Southwest through the commission like other development-driven commissions established in zonal basis. The commission, he said, will receive funds from the Federation account, donations from development partners, among others, to address infrastructural deficits and tackle the ecological problems in the region.
That the intent and purpose of the bill are well structured and strategically streamlined for the socio-economic development of the Southwest geopolitical zone of this country. And 3, that the establishment of the commission will bring the federal government closer to the Southwest states as well as meet the yearning and aspirations of the people. Recommendation. The committee, having considered the proposed bill and taking into account the relevance of the Southwest Development Commission, the committee resolved that the Southwestern geopolitical zone of this country should have one, and accordingly recommends that the Senate do consider and pass the Southwest Development Commission Establishment Bill SB 102.
Deputy President of Senate Barau Jibrin, who presided over plenary after the passage, commended the committee for processing the bill, which he said would address the infrastructural and ecological challenges in the Southwest. He said President Bola Tinubu has assented to similar bills passed for zonal development-driven interventions and will surely assent to the latest one.
That will, when passed into law, will help to really deal with the challenges being faced by the southwestern part of this country, infrastructural challenges, ecological challenges, and so on and so forth, and will help to put that region in the best place to have an environment that will be conducive for the people in that region, and it will, once that region is well developed, it also affects the entire nation, because whatever is done positively to any part of Nigeria is something that is done to the entire country. We thank Mr. President for his foresight by giving assent to similar bills, which is something that goes in tandem with his disposition of making sure that the entire country is well developed.
The upper legislative body also approved the appointment of Mrs. Olukemi Victoria Iyotan as one of the commissioners in the National Population Commission (NPC) representing Ondo State. The confirmation of the appointments followed the consideration of recommendation made to that effect by its Committee on National Identity Card and National Population, Abdul Ningi.
That the committee sat, perused through the credential of the nominee, and we had the cause to also write to the DSS, the Nigerian police, to actually confirm there was no query or petition against the nominee. We look at her credentials, her places of work, and we are really satisfied that she has passed the standard to be a commissioner in Ondo State.
Senators approved the recommendation of the committee when it was put to voice vote by Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Barau Jibril.
Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mrs. Olukemi Victoria Inyatan, representing Ondo State, for appointment as a commissioner for the National Population Commission. Those in favor say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Mrs. Iyontan will now join other commissioners and the chairman of NPC to work towards giving the country acceptable census. In a similar development, the Senate has passed for second reading a bill to establish the Nigeria Mines Ranger Service (NMRS) to combat illegal and artisanal mining in Nigeria. This followed presentation of the general principles of the bill by the sponsor, Senator Mohammed Onao, at plenary on Thursday. Presenting the general principles of the bill, Onao said the proposed NMRS, when established, would be saddled with the responsibilities of safeguarding mining operations, enforcement of mining environmental and safety regulations. He said the agency would also promote sustainable mining practices in Nigeria. According to him, the proposed Mine Rangers Service as specialized security outfit would, among others, curb illegal mining across the country, rescue trapped miners, provide emergency medical care, investigate mining accidents, and enforce compliance with mining regulations. Lawmakers who contributed to debates for the bill described the proposed Mine Ranger Service as a veritable outfit to protect and securing the mining sites across the country. Senator Orji Uzokalu said the proposed security outfit would help stop the yearly loss of $18.9 billion by Nigeria to illegal mining. The Deputy President of the Senate, Barau Jibril, who presided over plenary, described the bill as apt, giving the needed protection, regulations, and enforcement in the mining sector. The House of Representatives has urged the federal government to direct the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, to allow independent marketers lift fuel from Dangote Refinery. The resolution followed the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance by a member representing ENUGU, Kolokuma Opokuma Federal Constituency of Bayelsa, Oboku Ofoji, during plenary on Thursday. The lawmaker said that allowing the NNPCL and major marketers to lift fuel from the refinery to the exclusion of independent marketers was not good enough. He said that representatives of the independent marketers under the aegis of Ipman had expressed fear that members may be forced to resort to fuel imports to sustain their businesses. According to him, Nigeria is now driving towards energy self-sufficiency, cost savings, and foreign exchange savings, meeting the increasing demand for fuel and attracting foreign capital investments. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has reappointed Bitrus Chinoko as the Director General of the Center for Management Development, CMD. The Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, made this known in a letter dated August 28th. The appointment is for a final term of 4 years. Former President Muhammadu Buhari confirmed the appointment of Chinoko as substantive DG of CMD in April of 2020. The Southeast Zonal Coordinator of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Martins Iluyomade, has urged business owners and medical practitioners to assist the agency in curbing the circulation of substandard drugs in the region. Iluyomade made the call during the agency's sensitization campaign on substandard and falsified medicines in ENUGU. He emphasized the importance of raising awareness against fake and substandard products given Nigeria's current economic climate. The NAFDAC boss, while highlighting the dangers of fake products to the body, urged the public to remain cautious about the products they consume.
Many of these things is because of ignorance. And so we decided to organize this program to enlighten, to educate, to do sensitization for people, especially people that are dealing with the medicines, stakeholders, opinion leaders, to bring them to the point to remember that these things are still with us and they are very dangerous, and that we can go ahead and send the message across to everywhere. And this thing will be held all over the country. And then this one is held now for Southeast Zone, and ENUGU is taking as one. This is actually to sensitize people to the ills, the dangers of using of falsified and substandard medicines. And so many other people are also coming in to partner with NAFDAC to make sure that this message is driven home to everybody.
Some participants at the events emphasized the
Ignorance.
importance of the awareness campaign.
To educate. Message to stakeholders that they should partners in progress. They should join us, hands with us. It's not a NAFDAC problem. As substandard and falsified products is a problem to this country. So they should join hands with us. They should be able to communicate with their patients and send the message. They should be able to communicate well with the patients and tell them on how to identify some of all these products. To look out for the batch number, expiring date, name and addresses of the manufacturer, and spelling errors, and so on and so forth. Like somebody mentioned there that how the a product with NAFDAC number, if it's registered. We have already explained there that NAFDAC will not register a product and say it's NAFDAC number, but NAFDAC reg number. So those are some spelling errors. These people we fail to look out for when they are producing this fake product. So a product that has gone through NAFDAC registration will have all these things in place. So we are telling them to take on the message to us in their communities and everything. Even the royal fathers, we want them to enlighten their communities and tell their people. The people selling drugs there, the pharmacies, the patent and what have you, to enlighten, tell them, don't sell such products. If you are caught selling products like that in our locality, it will not be well with you. By engaging the royal fathers, we expect that the community will listen.
Highlights of the sensitization was a drama presentation on the negative impact of fake products, similar to 2030 Sustainable Development Goal SDGs target. Acting National President of the NCWS, Gerardine Itaetuk, who spoke at the inauguration of the exercise on Thursday in Abuja, said the initiative would encourage birth certificates or birth registration, especially at the community level. She said the organization would leverage on its structure to mobilize people, especially at the community, and had to reach areas to register births of their babies. The campaign is aimed at raising awareness about the significance of birth registration, identify the challenges hindering it, propose solutions, and strengthen partnerships with relevant stakeholders. Itaetuk described Nigeria's birth registration member months and beyond across the country. Speaking at the maiden town hall meeting organized by the FCT Sector Command on Thursday in Abuja, the Corps Marshal Malam Shehu Mohammed emphasized the need for collective efforts to ensure road safety. Mohammed, who was represented by the Assistant Corps Marshal in charge of operations, Ajinu Zomeje, said that the essence of the gathering was to address a pressing issue that affected everyone across the nation. He said that the responsibility for creating safer roads lied with every individual, noting that strategic partnership was also needed to implement the efforts of the Corps. He said that the partnership was necessary to ensure each and every individual takes responsibility for their action on the road. The Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, NUGU, has urged the implementation committee set up by the federal government to hasten the process of submission of the framework for the implementation of the local government autonomy. The president of NUGU, Ambali Olatunji, said this in a communique issued at the end of its National Executive Council meeting on Thursday in Abuja. Olatunji said that it was imperative that the committee hastens the process to ensure the smooth running of the local government administration. The union leader appealed to the federal government to immediately take steps towards ensuring the conduct of free, fair, and credible elections across all local governments in Nigeria. The union also called for urgent review of 2014 local government scheme of service to strengthen the functionality and equity for local government workers. Still to come, court adjourns EEDC 5 billion naira suit against Southeast electricity consumers till November 27th. Wike threatens to pay striking teachers with area council's IGR. Do stay with us. A federal high court sitting in ENUGU on Thursday adjourned the 5 billion naira suit by the ENUGU Electricity Distribution Company EEDC against the Southeast Electricity Consumers Association SECA to November 27th. EEDC had dragged SECA to court for allegedly interfering in its activities in the Southeast by inciting electricity consumers against payments of outrageous and estimated billing system and other anti-people activities of the company in the region. The defendants in the case were the leaders of SECA and the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. When the matter was called up for hearing, the counsel to EEDC, Okudili Abo, pleaded with the court for more time to respond to some papers served on his clients by the defendants. Counsel to the defendants, Ejike Zenwa, SAN, who said that he was ready for the case, conceded to the plea for adjournment to allow the plaintiff file his reply. After listening to both sides, the presiding judge, Justice M.G. Umar, adjourned the case to November 27th for hearing. Addressing newsmen on why his clients chose to sue SECA, Abo said that the EEDC wanted the courts to determine whether any other organization had the right to perform regulatory functions outside NERC. Also speaking to newsmen, the chairman of SECA, Reverend Okechukwu Obioha, said that the EEDC took the group to courts for enlightening other electricity consumers on their rights and obligations concerning electricity supply. A high court sitting in Ilorin on Thursday sentenced 5 men charged with the Offa Bank robbery incidents to death by hanging. The court convicted Ayode Akinibosun, Aziz Salahuddin, Niyi Ogundiran, Ibikunle Ogunleye, and Adiola Abraham after they were found guilty of conspiracy, armed robbery, culpable homicide, and illegal possession of firearms. Delivering the judgment, Justice Halima Salima held that the 5 defendants caused the death of people, including a police officer and civilians, during the armed robbery in Offa on April 2018, which is punishable by death. Earlier, the lead prosecuting counsel and senior advocate of Nigeria, Rotimi Jacob, said that the prosecution was able to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt that the judgment was done accordingly. Jacob said that the 6 years spent on the case was worth it, as evidence clearly showed that the convicts were involved in the robbery and killings. The lead defense counsel, Nathaniel Emeribe, represented by Abdullahi Jimba, said that the judgment was not surprising considering the evidence presented in court, saying it had been envisaged that it would end that way. The prime suspect, a policeman, Michael Atiku, died in police custody during the trial, while the remaining 5 pleaded for mercy but were convicted. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has revealed how the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yaya Adoza Bello, allegedly used the state's money to acquire choice properties in Dubai and Abuja. The EFCC slammed first 16-count charge against the former Kogi State governor at the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, along with 2 others. In the charge marked CR 7781-2024, Bello, Umar, Shuaibu, Oricha, and Abdul Salami Hudu are accused of spending over 110 billion naira of public funds to acquire several properties in Abuja and in Dubai. The charge filed on September 25th by the Anti-Graft Agency's lawyer, Kemi Pinheiro, senior advocate of Nigeria, accused Bello and co-defendants of criminal breach of trust, an offense punishable under Section 312 of the Penal Code Laws of Northern Nigeria, 1963. However, no date has been fixed for arraignment of the former governor in the first charges. It will be recalled that the EFCC had in the last 5 months attempted 4 times to put Bello in the dock to answer the 80.2 billion naira alleged fraud charges against him, but to no avail following his persistent refusal to appear before the Federal High Court in Abuja. Meanwhile, Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State on Thursday in Ibadan charged Nigerians to give their best to the country if they wanted to see a better nation. Makinde gave the charge during the Independence Day walk held in commemoration of Nigeria's independence. The walk is one of the activities lined up to celebrate the country's 64th Independence Day. Makinde, who was represented at the event by the Secretary to the State Governments, Professor Olanike Adeyemo, urged Nigerians to make efforts within their capacity towards the country's growth. He further charged Nigerians to continue praying for Nigeria and seek the good of the country in spite of ongoing challenges. Makinde expressed optimism that Nigeria would get better, urging Nigerians to pray for divine wisdom and guidance for their leaders in taking the right decisions which would make the country great. A collection of civil society organizations, CSOs, and accredited observers have called for the establishment of Electoral Offences Commission and audits of voters' register. The CSOs who made this call at the presentation of Citizens' Memorandum for Reform of Electoral Legal Framework in Abuja said the commission is, if established, would address electoral offences that have characterized the nation's voting process. Executive Director of Electar, Ibijoke Faborode, who spoke on behalf of his colleagues, said the aim was to reposition the electoral legal framework against the backdrop of recent landmark judicial decisions. Executive Director of Yaga Africa, Samson Itodo, said the reform was key to accountability and tackling impunity, saying the fact that people are not going to jail as a result of a vote buying is troubling. He advised the National Assembly to do a review of sanctions for bad behavior, insisting that Nigerians and voters need to understand the implications of selling their votes, which he said would make them lose the power to hold politicians accountable. The Citizens' Memorandum contains 37 recommendations under 15 objectives and covering 15 priority areas which aimed at achieving more credible, transparent, and accountable electoral process. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has threatened to use 10% internally generated revenue due to the 6 area councils of FCT to settle striking teachers' entitlements. Wike said this while responding to journalists on the FCT administration's intervention on the impasse between the primary school teachers and the 6 area councils of the FCT. The FCT of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, NUT, on September 18 resumed industrial action over unresolved welfare issues between it and the 6 area councils of the territory. The minister said he had invited the chairman of the area councils and the NUT leaders to find a way out. Some of the unresolved issues are non-payment of 60% of the 25 months old minimum wage arrears and the non-implementation and payment of 25% and 35% salary increase. Others are non-implementation and payment of 40% peculiar allowance and non-payment of the 35,000 Naira wage award arrears and non-implementation of the template on outstanding entitlements of teachers as agreed in 2022. The union said that the FCT minister had earlier intervened and promised to pay 40% of the outstanding 25 months minimum wage arrears. As part of the resolution for suspending the strike in January 2024, the 6 area councils were expected to pay the remaining 60% of the minimum wage arrears. The Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Almajiri and Out-of-School Children's Education says no fewer than 30 million Almajiri and 20 million out-of-school children are roaming about and in need of attention. Dr. Mohammed Idris disclosed this on Thursday at the inauguration of an 8-man committee to reform the Almajiri education in Abuja. Idris said that the children needed a sense of belonging and direction and tasked the committee to bring the various Almajiri schools or groups under one umbrella in such a way that responsible scholars would emerge among them. He also tasked the committee to unify all Almajiri schools associations in the country to streamline interaction and foster effective collaboration. Idris assured that 60% of the Almajiri children would be integrated into the Sangaya education system before the end of the administration. Meanwhile, about 11 persons comprising of men, women, and children have died of fresh cholera outbreak in Ndibokete village, Eza, in Yimago, in Easy local government area of Ebonyi State. The State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Moses Ekuma, who confirmed this in a statement made available to newsmen on Thursday in Abakaliki, said the outbreak, reported on September 23rd, had claimed the life of a nursing mother leaving behind her 9-month-old baby. The commissioner said that about 20 other affected persons were responding to treatment in the hospital. He commended Governor Francis Nwifuru for approving funds for the procurement of medical commodities to tackle the outbreak. Ekuma listed treatment centers in the area to include Iziogo Health Center, Sudan Mission, Onuim, and Ndibokote Village, and advised the people to take precautionary measures to prevent the spread of the disease. Delta government says it will build roads and bridges to link every community with the state capital as part of the efforts to develop the state. The Commissioner for Works, Rural and Riverine Roads, Charles Aniago, said this at the flag-off of the construction of 2.7 kilometers Isele Azagba Otulu Road in Anyocha North local government. Aniago said the Governor, Sheriff Obovori, was determined to develop all parts of the state in line with his administration's vision for the state. The commissioner also disclosed that the Oberveri-led administration was mobilizing contractors to ensure they work with the necessary speed to avoid price fluctuations. ENUGU said the contractor had been given 30% of the contract sum, adding that he was expected to deliver the project within 12 months. The Jigawa state government has announced plans to establish compressed natural gas (CNG) conversion centers in the 27 local government areas of the state. The state governor Umar Namadi, who announced this at the inauguration of a petrol filling station in Dutse, said the CNG centers would be established in partnership with a private company. Namadi said the establishment of the CNG stations would reduce the fuel cost by 60% and provide a significant relief for residents of the state. He said the investment initiative aligned with his administration's 12-point agenda aimed at job creation and economic development. The governor urged the company to explore the Jigawa Invest platform for more insights on the policies of the state government, which he said is committed to ensuring that the right things are done for the people. Managing Director of the company, Ibrahim Yusuf, said the organization is interested in boosting investment in the state and assured that the company would train 100 youth as technicians in each of the 27 local government areas of the state. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has pledged $600,000 support for the victims of the devastating flood in Borno State and other health sector initiatives. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, announced the donation when he held a meeting with the officials of the foundation led by the President of Global Development Program, Dr. Christopher Elea, on the sidelines of the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. The foundation also pledged an additional $5 million in grant for Lagos Business School and partners to develop the agricultural economics of industrial cassava. Shettima reaffirmed the commitment of the Nigerian government to place health, nutrition, and agricultural development at the forefront of the nation's national agenda, and the government's dedications to integrity and effective leadership in tackling those issues. The Vice President pointed out that there was an urgency in securing locations for maize production under the Telemaize program and promised swift action on import permits to certified seeds. Earlier, Elias said that the foundation was deeply worried about the severe flooding in Borno State and committed to supporting Nigeria in times of crisis. The federal government has approved the increase of corps members' monthly allowance from 33,000 naira to 77,000 naira with effect from July 2024. NYSC's Acting Director of Information and Public Relations, Caroline Embu, who revealed this in a statement, said the increase is in line with the enactment of the National Minimum Wage Amendment Act of 2024. This, she said, is contained in a letter from the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission dated September 25th and signed by the chairman, Mr. Ekbo Nta. Embu said that the NYSC Director General was thankful to the federal government for the gesture, which he described as timely. She added that he was optimistic that it would not only bring much needed succor to the corps members, but also boost their morale and motivate them to do more in their service to the nation. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, says plans are ongoing to pay deposits of the defunct Heritage Bank, whose deposits exceed 5 million naira. The Managing Director of NDIC, Bello Hassan, disclosed this at the 2024 workshop for Financial Correspondents Association of Nigeria, FICAN, in Lagos on Thursday. Hassan said the corporation was working to ensure that the depositors who had above 5 million naira with the bank got paid through the liquidation dividends. On payment of insured deposits to depositors of the defunct bank, he said the corporation had paid substantially all insured depositors. He said that the only group of insured depositors yet to be paid are those with no alternate account and have not come forward to provide the alternate account through which they can be paid. Hassan assured that the corporation will continue to do all within its mandate to ensure stability in the financial system, saying that the confidence was key in maintaining stability in the financial system. The NDIC had in an editorial listed the assets of the defunct bank nationwide for sale, including vehicles, office equipment, and machinery in 62 locations across the country. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, has advised banks to comply with the regulatory requirements, especially on Bank Verification Number, BVN. According to NDIC, the aim is to ensure prompt payment of insured deposits to depositors in the event of bank closure. The controller, ENUGU Zonal Office of the NDIC, Pamela Roberts, said this at the 2024 workshop organized for Financial Correspondents Association of Nigeria in Lagos. She said the development was one factor that had delayed the payments of insured deposits to depositors of defunct banks by NDIC. Roberts, while presenting a lecture titled Effective Bank Closure, the NDIC's Experience and Current Innovations, urged banks to properly document information of depositors in their banks. She described a failing bank as one that had difficulty in meeting obligations of its depositors and other creditors, as well as one that persistently suffers liquidity deficiency. The controller listed some challenges of the cooperation in bank closing to include unfriendly bank staff, aggrieved hostile depositors and creditors, volume of work, and inadequate resources. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says it has approved additional $20,000 each to eligible bureau de change at the exchange rate of 1,590 naira to further boost foreign exchange liquidity. CBN's Acting Director, Trade and Exchange Department, Dr. William Kanaya, said in a statement in Abuja that the BDCs are allowed to sell to eligible end users at a margin of not more than 1% above the purchase from the CBN. Kanaya advised eligible BDCs interested in the transaction to make the Naira payment the CBN deposit account numbers within them. He said that all payments, a confirmation and necessary documentation for disbursements are to be submitted at the appropriate CBN branches in Abuja, Awka, Kano, and Lagos. Still to come, Russia opposed detention of American Joseph Tata for assaulting police officer. Missiles intercepted in northeastern Israel near Lebanon border. These and more after the break. To stay with us. News on Signature Television. U.S. President Joe Biden announced more than $8 billion in military assistance for Ukraine on Thursday to help Kyiv repel Russian invaders, using a visit by President Volodymyr Zelensky to make a major commitment. The aid includes the first shipment of a precision-guided glide bomb called the Joint Standoff Weapon, with a range of up to 81 miles. The medium-range missiles give Ukraine a major upgrades to the weapons it is using to strike Russian forces, allowing the Ukrainians to do it at safer distances. He said the U.S. would continue to help Ukraine strengthen its position on the battlefield and that he had directed the Pentagon to allocate all remaining security funding by the end of his term in January.
Right now, we have to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield. And that's why today I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. I've also directed the Pentagon to allocate all the remaining security assistance funding that has been appropriated for Ukraine, period, by the end of my term, which is January 20. And this will strengthen Ukraine's position in future negotiations. Second, we look ahead to help Ukraine succeed in the long term. As you know better than anyone, as we said at the Washington Summit, we have to support Ukraine in its path to membership to both the EU and to NATO, and continue to make reforms to counter corruption and strengthen democracy, which you're working mightily on right now. We have to ensure Ukraine has sufficient capabilities, and I mean sufficient capabilities, to defend against future Russian aggression. So I'm proud of the steps we've taken in our partnership on these fronts. Earlier this summer, we launched the Ukraine Compact with more than 20 nations committed to Ukraine's long-term security. And yesterday, with over 30 nations and the EU, we launched the Joint Declaration of Support for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction, some of it using Russian assets as well. And so with both these actions, we make it clear we stand with Ukraine now and in the future. We've got a lot to discuss, so let me close with this. These two elements are critical to how this war ends. Let me be clear. Russia will not prevail in war. Russia will not prevail. Ukraine will prevail, and we'll continue to stand by you every step of the way. Right now, we have to strengthen Ukraine
for his support and said it was important to secure Ukraine's future in the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
We deeply appreciate that Ukraine and America have stood side by side from the very first moments of this terrible Russian invasion. Your determination is incredibly important for us to prevail. Yesterday we had, as you said, we had a G7 plus meeting on Ukraine's reconstruction with more than 30 countries participating, and it was a truly helpful format. We must restore normal life, and we greatly value your leadership, Mr. President. We also have 26 bilateral security agreements with partners based on the G7 Security Declaration. We have a strong security agreement with the United States, and we are grateful for it, and we will fully implement it. And it's very important that we share the same vision for Ukraine's security future in the EU and NATO, and Ukraine is doing the unprecedented number of reforms on this path. Today we have a new support package, $7.9 billion. This will be a great help, and I raised with President Biden the plan of victory. Today we are preparing to discuss the details to strengthen the plan, coordinate our positions, views, and approaches. Our teams will work together to ensure the implementation of our future steps. And today in the morning, I've met with both Senate and the House, and thank you for the unwavering bipartisan support. And to all American people, together we have to win, and we will win.
Zelensky has long sought NATO membership, but the allies have stopped short of taking that step. A London-based nuclear analyst at the Henry Jackson Society think tank, Behram Ghassi, says the timing of the Putin's nuclear warning is linked with Ukraine's lobbying of the West over long-range missiles and the fact that President Volodymyr Zelensky is making his case to U.S. President Joe Biden this week. Putin said on Wednesday that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it was struck with conventional missiles, and that Moscow would consider any assault on it supported by nuclear power to be a joint attack.
What Mr. Putin stated yesterday, I think, demonstrates that he is concerned regarding the threat to the national security of Russia, and hence he finds it necessary to warn the West, of course, in particular, U.S. and NATO, that there is a limit to what they can actually do. In my view, there is a direct correlation between the fact that the U.S. and the U.K. Governments are suggesting that they are considering as to whether allow Ukraine to use Russian and British missiles to attack deep inside Russia. So there's direct correlation there, and Putin is saying, just stop it right there before further contemplation on this point, because it's going to have very dire consequences. Personally, in my view, the West will take heed, will notice, will listen, that this might not be such an empty and hollow threat. And there could be ramifications. I personally believe that. Russia used nuclear weapons. It will use its tactical nuclear weapons, the 1,860 or so tactical nuclear weapons, which would be battlefield nuclear weapons. So it won't affect the countries neighboring NATO, countries neighboring Ukraine, including European members of NATO. But I personally believe that the West should take this threat seriously. what Mr. Putin...
The changes, which Putin's spokesman said on Thursday, were meant as a signal to Western countries that there would be serious consequences if they participated in attacks on Russia. Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Thursday said it will continue to develop its own liquefied natural gas (LNG) technologies and will boost the infrastructure of the Northern Sea routes. Putin, while speaking at the Russian Energy Week Forum in Moscow, said that the so-called friendly countries account for 90% of Russia's energy exports. A Russian court on Thursday denied an appeal from U.S. citizen Joseph Tata against the arrest for assaulting a police officer in Moscow. Tata was first detained in August and jailed for 15 days for petty hooliganism after he was alleged to have abused staff at a Moscow hotel, something he denied. Local news agency reports that Tata had subsequently assaulted a police officer, leading to a fresh criminal case being opened against him. The charge is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Tata is one of the at least 10 Americans currently behind bars in Russia. And Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted his Equatorial Guinean counterpart Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo for talks in Moscow on Thursday. The presidents met in the Kremlin after visiting the Russian Energy Week events, the annual Moscow Energy Conference attended by international oil and gas executives. Russia and the Equatorial Guinea are both members of the Organization of Gas Producers, Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, and the OPEC Plus group. Meanwhile, the president of the European Council, Charles Michel, said on Thursday that allowing conflict to increase further between Israel and Lebanon would be irresponsible. Speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, Michel said the European Union called for a ceasefire in both Gaza and Lebanon. He also reiterated bloc's support for Ukraine in its war with Russia and condemned the continuing civil war in Sudan. Meanwhile, Israeli tanks were being transported across northern Israel on Thursday as a police spokesperson said security forces were at high alert in the area to aid civilians in areas affected by strikes by Lebanon-based Hezbollah.
Right now, we're up north together with other police forces. We are at a high alert with our operational readiness, making sure that we can give service to our civilians and also protect the property in the area. We've seen numerous impact sites that we've responded to, houses in the area just yesterday and the day before where our civilians rush into the bomb shelters. We arrived to the impact sites, we realized that their house was a direct hit, and luckily they listened to the instructions of the Israel Police and the Home Front Command to stay close to bomb shelters. We ask that they continue doing this, and the Israel Police, together with the rest of the Israel security forces, are going to be in the area doing whatever we need to give service to our civilians. Right.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday he had not responded to a U.S. and French proposal for a ceasefire in Lebanon, but that he had instructed the military to keep fighting at full power for the moment. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Israel Katz rejected proposal for a 21-day halt in fighting, which has killed hundreds in Lebanon and raised fears of a ground invasion. On Wednesday, Israel's military chief Herzi Halevi told troops that airstrikes in Lebanon would continue in order to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure and to prepare the way for a possible ground operation by Israeli forces. Similarly, Israeli forces intercepted several missiles over Kiryat Shmona in the country's northeast on Thursday as the government rejected a U.S.-backed Lebanon ceasefire proposal. Israel has made the priority of securing its northern border and allowing the return there of some 70,000 residents displaced by near daily exchanges of fire, which Lebanon-based Hezbollah initiated a year ago in solidarity with the Palestinian group Hamas in Gaza. Israeli airstrikes sharply intensified since Monday, when more than 550 people were killed in Lebanon's deadliest day since the end of a 1975-1990 civil war. Peace and prosperity are the central themes of the United Nations World Tourism Day, celebrated annually on September 27th, a senior UN official said on Thursday. After referencing many conflicts around the world, Zurab Polokashvili, Secretary General of the UN World Tourism Organization, said that what unites the global tourist family is its shared humanity. He emphasized that tourism is the most humane sector where every journey leads to a connection. Inaugurated by the UN in 1980, World Tourism Day aims to raise awareness of the positive role tourism can play in fostering understanding and peace among different cultures. This year's official celebrations will take place in Tbilisi, Georgia's capital, on Friday, featuring a series of discussions. The discussions include topics such as tourism as a catalyst for sustainable peace, building bridges through tourism, and tourism as a driver of global peace. Meanwhile, cultural shows, educational programs, and workshops promoting tourism will be held around the world. And elsewhere, South Korean lawmakers on Thursday passed a bill that criminalizes possessing or watching sexually explicit deepfake images and videos, with penalties set to include prison terms and fines. There has been an outcry in South Korea over Telegram group chats where sexually explicit and illegal deepfakes were created and widely shared, prompting calls for tougher punishments. Currently, making sexually explicit deepfakes with the intention of distributing them is punishable by 5 years in prison or a fine of 50 million won under the Sexual Violence Prevention and Victims Protection Act. According to the bill, anyone purchasing, saving, or watching such materials could face up to 3 years in jail or be fined up to 30 million won. When the new law takes effect, the maximum sentence for such crimes will also increase to 7 years regardless of the intentions. Hundreds protested in Madrid on Thursday in an effort to force an agreement between the government and the business sector over a reduction in working hours. Protesters gathered in front of the CEOE building, Spain's main employers association, demanding a reduction in the working hours. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's socialists are seeking to persuade businesses to buy into a plan to reduce the working week to 2.5 hours from 40 hours that they say will boost productivity. To secure the backing of employers, the government has offered a hiring bonus for small businesses with less than 10 employees to offset the reduction in working hours while maintaining the same level of service, according to a source involved in the negotiations. The offer calculates the working week on an annual basis so workers in sectors where it is able to adapt shifts, such as hospitality, can accrue hours that can later be compensated for in the form of holidays. Spaniards work more hours than most Europeans. According to Eurostat, the average working week in Spain was 36.4 hours in 2023 compared to the European Union average of 36.1 hours. And that's the news this hour. Many thanks for joining us. In another 3 minutes, we're up with the morning show. Join us then. I'm Charles Pius. Good morning.
CGIF, thank God it's Friday. Good morning, everyone, and welcome as usual to Signature Morning on Signature Television. How are you all doing? Seriously, this is the weekend. I'm super excited because weekend thing, used to have a special vibe. But okay, let's see how it goes. Okay, you know how we do it this morning, bringing you hands-on news and newspaper headlines, review, and everything you need to know about what's happening in and around you today. My name is Belinda Ngobodo.
All right, my name is Charles. I really don't know what vibes she's talking about, because if you talk about vibes, you're talking about spending monies, the weekend is upon us.
You don't need money in every vibe.
Oh, really?
That's one problem with you guys. You mustn't need money. Happiness is the key. Money is not everything.
But sometimes money makes you happy.
Sometimes,
yes.
Not all the time.
But most of the time, especially in these days and times, you need money to actually get the good vibe. I mean, do you actually take yourself out without spending money, though? Is it ever possible to take oneself
I would say, when you say without spending money, because of transportation, you might want to transport yourself to that particular place. So you might, end up spending money, but you can actually take yourself out, stroll around, get fresh air, have this free breeze and all of that. Think, you just meditate, you can even cook in your house and take it out and, just take care of yourself,
Apparently, even taking yourself out has become more expensive. An average taking out these days, if you're not having up to 20,000 naira at least, you are probably spending below par. And imagine if you're going with someone. Imagine if you're going with an individual, or maybe you're going with a pair, maybe a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband or a wife. You're not going to look at anything less than 30,000 or 40,000 naira. And so it's expensive to even step out. Staying at home these days is even expensive, more expensive I've seen, because again, you have to pay for power to stay at home. You also have to cook your food. Food is expensive. So everything, is just high up there. But I hope that things get better. People, begin to earn as much as they work. At least we've had NYSC right now receiving more than 70,000 naira minimum wage. They are now 77,000. It's a good thing for most of them. That's one.
We are waiting for it, actually. They are waiting to be
No,
paid.
it's actually, the government actually backtracked it. It's going to be from July. So for those
July,
who are not, from July, 2 months shy now. So it's with immediate effect, so to speak. So for those who have not received that amount, maybe you probably may be looking for an augmentation, from the one that was not paid since July.
Today is World Tourism Day. I had to cut you in there because I know you're going to ask me. We didn't hear anything about today. Today is World Tourism Day. And I think the first time I met you, you just came back from
South
a
Africa.
tour. So how was it, just being a tourist, going around where you've never been before and all of that?
Yes, I mean, it's a beautiful country, South Africa. I mean, landscape in South Africa is breathtaking. It's one of the finest countries in Africa if you want to talk about landscapes. Cape Town, Johannesburg, Soweto, just beautiful environments. They are using that landscape to make monies for the country. It is one of the countries people go into. In fact, do you know that Johannesburg is one of the most, is the most visited city on the African continent?
Africa?
No, Johannesburg.
Wow. In the whole Africa?
In the whole of Africa is the most visited city. And that's because of how fantastic the place is. There's several places you could go and take pictures, look at their sites. I mean, the Mandela Museum, is one of the best places to be at. It just reminds you of how Mandela struggled during the apartheid period, and of course Desmond Tutu and the likes. I mean, there's several places. So I'm thinking that Nigeria has even better places than South Africa, but we're not using that. I mean, look at the Tinapa story. I mean, up until 2015, we still had people all boisterous about going to Tinapa, going to Calabar, for the Calabar Carnival that happens every single year in December. But I don't think that buzz is still there. And that's because of how we have mismanaged it over the years. And I think that tourism, we have several places. Even in ENUGU, where we are located, there are several places that can be developed. I really don't know the extent of the mandates given to the Commissioner for Tourism here in ENUGU, but I believe that sometimes some of these tours can be organized even by the government to go and visit some of these places, the home of this world. Do you know there are places that water just drops from rocks, and you really don't know where the water is coming from. Like, it still exists, and there's nothing to document it. And we have people who are in positions who are supposed to be managing these places and bringing it to fore for people from around the world to come in and see what we actually have here, but we're not doing that.
Do you think Enugu State is kind of a tourist place?
It is if we decide as a people to make it a tourist place. Frankly speaking, it is. It has several. In fact, the last time I checked, there are 10 different places in Enugu State that are tourism attractive locations that we can basically earn monies every month from if we decide to develop those places. And that's all about developing the place and being strategic in making those places work, and let the government invest in more in that sector, because there's so much that we're losing. Beyond the Enugu being a hub for digital technology and a hub for music and movies,
exactly.
But I mean, we can tap into that sector that has really gone moribund.
Okay, a lot to talk about. You see how we started off this Friday, and we'll be, of course, we have someone in the studio already, Chiagorum. I hope I get that right. Emmanuel.
Is that his surname or his grandfather's name?
You're welcome, Emmanuel.
How do you do?
Good to have you this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning.
All right, so we'll just go through some of the headlines that we've been following on the dailies this morning. Let's see on the Nigerian Tribune this morning. If we have that, oil and gas industry owes federal government $6 billion and 66 billion naira, NATI reports. That's according to the NATI's report. Bobrisky, federal government suspends senior prison officials. That's one of the trending stories on the dailies this morning. Still on the Nigerian Tribune, Oyo records 130 suspected cases of cholera in 6 local government areas. That's on page 4. Rates of migration affecting health sector. Obasanjo laments. Well, it's just crazy. Tinubu reappoints Chinoko CMD DG. What Southwest Development Commission will achieve? This is coming from the senators. Senate passes bill, awaits reps concurrence. That's on page 23 of the Nigerian Tribune. Federal government to toll Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, second Niger Bridge, and others. Edo, INEC presents certificates of return to Ekpebolo and deputy. With the rider, I will serve to my people. Governor-elects, that's on page 8. Court sentences 5 to deaths by hanging 6 years after of a bank robbery. That's all on the Nigerian Tribune. We're moving over to the Punch newspaper. On the Punch newspaper this morning, 70,000 naira minimum wage. Federal government begins payment. Salaries. Federal government begins payment. Salaries rise to 4 trillion naira. With the rider, 1,236,824 federal workers to earn 334.95 billion naira monthly. NLC, TUC, Lord, federal government. 21 children killed in Kenyan school fire buried. Bobrisky, reps, commence probe, prison controllers suspended. Kwara hails death sentence for 5 of a bank robbers. Afenifere demands restructuring as Senate OK Southwest Development Commission. All right. Still on the Punch newspaper, just above the mast, federal government probing bandits sponsors, says GHQ. Oil companies owe government over $6 billion, says Naiti. Why my administration suspended Sanusi, Jonathan speaks. I wonder why he's talking about that at this time. All right. We're moving over to the Vanguard newspaper
this morning. All right, alleged missing $49.8 billion. Why Sanusi had to go as CBN governor. That's from Jonathan. And above the marks, why some Heritage Bank depositors are yet to be refunded. NDIC boss.
Flood. How 5 northern states lost 141 lives in 2 months.
Edopo, I will be servant to all, ready to work with opposition. Okwebolo receives certificates of return.
Christian elders to federal government reverse fuel price hike to avert looming crisis.
This day publisher to military, stop arresting protesters, go after kidnappers. Ganging media will stagnate democracy. That's from Governor Oyebanji.
Eguavoin continues as Super Eagles head coach against Libya, says NFF.
Nigeria at 64. SGF ministers defend Tinubu's policies amid cabinet reshuffle hint.
All right, that's interesting headlines out of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. We're headed over to the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, just above the marks, federal government suspends prisons officers over Bobrisky allegation.
Hardship. Tinubu orders low-key 64th independence celebration.
I wonder why low-key. Jonathan counters Emir Sanusi, says Nigeria did not lose $49.8 billion under his watch.
Flood displaces 82 communities in Niger. With the rider, we used canoes to evacuate our families. 19 LGAs affected this year, says SEMA DG. Situation worrisome. Council chair speaks. 4 LGAs cut off in Borno.
50 million Almajirai out of school children roaming Nigerian streets. That's from federal government.
Cholera kills 11 in Ebonyi.
Tour operators suspend registration for 2025 Hajj.
Offer bank robbers to die by hanging after 6-year trial. We're headed over to the Nation newspaper this morning. On the Nation this morning, above the masts, under 18 pupils won seats for Wase. Minister insists.
Federal government questioning effect of reform, says ministers. With the rider, 20 million Nigerians get cash support. Petrol subsidy removal has opened sector to investment.
Senate passes Southwest Development Commission bill.
Prisons controllers suspended as probe of Bobrisky's claim begins.
Jonathan refutes Emir Sanusi's claim on missing $49.8 billion.
Ex-Governor Yahaya Bello not afraid of facing trial, says media office.
Why marketers can't purchase petrol from Dangote refinery. With the rider, Pengasin chief X-rays price and crisis, or raise price and crisis. House of Representatives makes case for marketers.
Tinubu Edo will get full support with the rider Okpebolo visits Villa.
All right, that's all on the Nation newspaper this morning. Let's see if we can do Daily Independent before we get to Emmanuel for the review this lovely Friday morning.
All right, Daily Independent. Tinubu correcting missteps of past, repositioning Nigeria. That's from federal government. With the rider, 6 Nigerians understand over economic hardship. Says hardship occasioned by unavoidable policy choices. Insists president focused on putting more money in citizens' pockets. Tinubu's administration inherited 2,600 road projects worth 13 trillion naira.
All right, still on Daily Independent this morning. Nigeria did lose 49.8 billion naira, or $billion rather, under my watch, says Jonathan. Says he didn't sack Sanusi as CBN governor.
Okay. Reps ask federal government to allow marketers lift PMS directory from Dangote.
85% of defunct Heritage Bank depositors paid via BVN, says NDIC.
Court sentences 5 to death over 2018 offer bank robbery.
ENUGU, INEC presents certificates of return to Okwebolo and deputy. With the rider, Tinubu tasks governor-elect on developments, pledges federal support.
Oil gas sector owes the federal government $6 billion, 66 billion naira fresh native report reveals.
Senate moves to increase governance costs with new security outfit.
Northern leaders seek solution to insecurity, poverty, disunity in region.
Oil, gas sector owes federal government $6 billion, 66 billion naira, fresh native report reveals. All right, we'll leave it here with the headlines out of our daily newspapers. We'll bring in Emmanuel on the table. Emmanuel, good to have you this lovely Friday morning. How do you do?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. It's been one interesting conversation, especially as it regards the lifting of petrol by marketers directly from Dangote refineries. Many people think that if Dangote deals directly with marketers, the pump price of fuel might most likely drop. But selling to NNPC alone would make the price remain the way it is. Because again, we've always had this story about landing costs, importation, dollar exchanges and whatnot. We sold this crude to Dangote in Naira. And I mean, if we refine this thing in Naira, there is no way in the world, for crying out loud, that the price of fuel will remain at 1,200 in some places, 1,400 in some other places.
1.5.
And some places even 1.5, in fact. So what do you make of this development, though?
Well, the issue of lifting fuel from Dangote refinery and fixing of prices of price for that product would be resolved if private marketers are also allowed to get fuel directly from Dangote's refinery. That being so because NNPC being the sole lifter of fuel from Dangote refinery, there are high tendencies that they would also add their own sum or amount on what they get the product from Dangote's refinery. Because a few weeks ago there were issues on the exact amount Dangote agreed with NNPC that they would be selling the fuel to them. So you see, this kind of discrepancies occurred because of that lack of synergy and understanding. Then for me as a private marketer, I source my fuel elsewhere, spend money on transport, lifting and bringing to my depot and all of that. I dictate how much I want to sell, because
absolutely
the aim of going into the business is to make profit. So if we have Dangote refinery in place and private marketers can access fuel directly, then it's still the same thing. The fuel price will still be high, because I, as a private marketer who got fuel from, let's say, Benin or so, with all the expenses made, I would want to get my return. So whether federal government and Dangote are partnering to ensure that fuel is in circulation, so far as the private marketers, who are the major marketers of this product, are not allowed to access this product directly from Dangote refinery, we will still have that problem of price hike.
Absolutely.
Okay, looking at, you talked about the private, the marketers. We saw the other time that Libya was at 52 naira. Like the price they sell in the country is worth 52 naira in our own currency. So do you think there's gonna, push some marketers to go outside Nigeria, especially to countries like Libya, to purchase oil?
Well, if they are not allowed access to Dangote, to lift the product from Dangote's refinery, most definitely they would have to find another alternative, because any businessman who goes into business would want to make profit. And as we all know, looking at the economy, I would want to go where I can get it cheaper and make more profit. So if we have fuel, if we have a refinery in functional in the country and I can't access the product from there, I go elsewhere, get my product and put whatsoever price that I feel would cover my expenses and profit. So until they allow, the private marketers are allowed to lift this product from Dangote's refinery, the issue of pricing will still remain as it is.
All right, I mean, it's been a raging issue, frankly speaking. Everyone is really worried about it because so many people right now with the pricing system feel that the price of our petrol is overpriced, especially for people who are living in the country, since you don't have any reason to refine abroad. Because what we do is to sell our crude and get the refined product back. We're refining here in Nigeria. People think that the price should be down. You know, so one wonders why we're buying fuel at 1,000 when we actually produce these things.
Well, it's quite laughable, this issue of refining outside. Just like you are a farmer, you cultivate yam, you sell the tubers out and go and buy fried yam to eat. That's just the analogy, because we have this product beneath our soil.
Absolutely.
So why get this product, take it somewhere else, refine, and you still buy from? So I think the issue of oil and gas, the issue prevalent in the oil and gas sector in the country is an organized crime by the powers that be, because this has been ongoing for so long. And you notice that whenever there is a push for a change, you notice a lot of it becomes very difficult to actually achieve any meaningful policy that would reduce the hardship on the people. Okay, looking at NMPC, NMPCL Limited now, they said they lifted the price from Dangote at about 890, I think 897. Yes, yeah. Naira. Why Dangote came out to
say it's not. It's not true. But even though it hasn't said the price it's sold to NMPC, it hasn't mentioned. He just said it's false that the pricing regulatory body should be the one to say the price. So he didn't mention, you know, the price that is sold to NMPC. But with the way he came out, it does look like
the price is really
the price was not what the NMPC said.
Well, at this point, what we expect from Dangote Refinery and whatsoever body in charge of regulating the prices, they should sit on the table to say, okay, fine, Dangote, what is your price? How can this get to the end user without causing so much pain? You understand?
Well, but the federal government has said that they don't want to interfere. They don't want to, in yesterday's stories that we followed, the federal government said they don't want to interfere, they don't want to get into the pricing quarrel between
NMPC. The more reason they should allow private marketers direct access. If they are not interfering, why is it that NMPC is the only person lifting the product from Dangote?
Absolutely.
So they say one thing and do the other.
Absolutely.
So it's just a question of if they are actually ready to address these issues. Because I believe they have the solution to all these problems. And in our nation, fare is our basic and major product. Once it goes up, everything, it affects every other sector. You talk about transportation, prices of food and whatnot. So if this can be addressed, because from the news a few days ago, they said that by October it will start paying in Naira, which we hope that the price would come down a bit. We don't know how much yet, but if that would work, I think it will be a good step in the right direction. But I think private marketers should be allowed to access this product directly from Dangote.
Okay, let's look at Bobrisky's case. Okay, so what's your take on the controversies surrounding she case? We've seen today that federal government suspends senior prison officials who were alleged to have been bribed by Bobrisky. What's your take on this?
Well, I don't know how this relates, but there's a saying that goes, when you're eating, you don't talk. So for me, I feel if for whatever reason the claim in that voice note or the WhatsApp chat, if for whatever reason the claim is true, why did you have to come out to say it? You were given that privilege, or you paid your way through certain to get a certain condition while serving your 6 month term. it was done, it was done. Why come out and, because the whole issue started from the voice notes that Bobrisky sent. I think there was an issue between FARS, involving FARS as well, where
I think it was the very dark man that was going against, going after FARS.
Well, I must commend the young man. He's a bit controversial, but he addressed keen issues that affect ordinary Nigerians. He's more like an avenger for the common man. You understand? So
but don't you think it's too risky right now? Because Falani has come to say you have to withdraw your statement. FARS is saying almost everybody is kind of against him. He's looking like, oh, there's going to be a secret threat on his life or security threat if care is not taken.
For now, I don't think any threat, apart from the legal processes of addressing grievances against each other as citizens, would be, because there's no smoke, there's no how is it said? There's no
smoke without fire.
Yeah, so you know.
There's no smoke without fire.
I strongly believe that some of the claims he made may be true, but the way he went about it wasn't appropriate. But that notwithstanding, the House of Reps have ordered investigation into the case. 2 senior officers were suspended. So at least we have seen the impacts that, let me say in quote, careless statement has made. So this goes a long way to say how deep-rooted corruption has eaten into the fabrics of Nigeria in all sectors. So imagine someone who was sentenced to serve a term, paid his way to stay in an apartment, you understand, for 6 months, and we all believed he was somewhere. In fact, while he was serving, there were tweets of how when he comes out, he have beards or she will have beards and all of those things. So, but only for us to discover that that wasn't so. So it's all.
But personally, I feel like Bobrisky, did well in a way, to bring this out. Don't you think? Because it's been about bribing officials. It's been about whenever you've been arrested, you see officials trying to get money from you, trying to get what we call a cars from you. And I feel like him bringing this case, and then threatening the opposition right now, they're already been suspended. I think it's going to play this role of reducing or putting fear in other security officials, to refrain from such acts next time they experience such.
Well, for me, I feel maybe he was just trying to confide in one of his close allies without the second thought that what he was doing will have far-reaching consequences. Because, like I said before, when you're eating, you don't talk. The best way to stay out of trouble is just to listen more, speak less.
Right.
Yeah, because the entire thing that played out was in his favor. You understand? So him coming out to say that, but I'm not supporting the fact that corrupt practices should be prevalent in our system. But surrounding the controversy, I feel he would have just kept quiet.
Right, we're done really. I was just going to ask, Nigeria will be Sister 4 in a few days' time, 1st of October. Is there one proud thing in the last 1 year you would say to yourself that you are proud about Nigeria?
Oh.
I like that.
You had to think about this? Are you kidding me right now?
I'm trying to be sincere.
So there's no proud thing about Nigeria that you could say in the last 1 year that has happened?
Well, we have evolved. We have been evolving, positively, negatively. But I would say that for the past 1 year, it's like we've been moving in circles, in the sense that since the beginning of this administration, we used to know that there's from frying pan to fire. But now it's more like we've moved from frying pan to the furnace. The present administration and its supporters always defend it by saying the policies well, which if you look at it, look at the broader picture of it in the long run, if effectively implemented as it should be, would go a long way in helping the economic situation. But I think the way they are going about the whole thing is what is actually the problem, because someone said the statement "subsidy is gone" was not part of his speech. It was just a stunt he pulled. I don't know, maybe he felt that would...
Well, the stunt is pulled up until almost 2 years in office. It's crazy.
So that singular statement, "subsidy is gone," has kept us in a deep hole of anguish, of hardship, of suffering, and a lot of things are not going well, and Nigerians are not happy. So if you would ask me if there is something I have
you're proud of.
I am proud of in the last 1 year. I would say no.
Absolutely.
You're alive. I think that's one thing to be proud of.
Thank you
very much, Emmanuel, for your time. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll come back. We'll move straight to another segment. You don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're watching Signature Morning on Signature Television. We're live on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, we're live on YouTube as well. It's 24 hours right there. All right, we'll switch gears to talk about local government autonomy. Well, with the spate of local government elections that we've had recently, the one in Imo, ENUGU, Kwara, and even in Sokoto State, so many people think that the Supreme Court may have done the right thing of pronouncing that local governments have its financial autonomy. Maybe it should go further than that. How so? We have with us Barrister Chukwunonso Daniel Ogbe. Good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure.
Barrister, firstly, I just want to ask your reactions to the local government outcomes that happened in Imo State and, of course, in Enugu State. I'm sure that you were part and parcel of the one that happened in Enugu State. Your party participated. But I looked out for your party at the declaration of the results on Sunday at the NSEC office at the Independence Layers. I didn't see any of your party members or even you. What's your reaction and why did you guys run away from the declaration?
And in the first instance, we never ran away from the declaration, but I think it wouldn't have been of any use being part of an exercise that I will refer to as an exercise in futility, because there wasn't any need for the members of Action Alliance besieging the NSEC office in Enugu State, when in the true sense of it, the results garnered by the various candidates at the various polling unit levels weren't, declared as required by law. As a matter of fact, the
result at polling units was not declared.
It wasn't.
In fact, is it all the places or the places you visited?
I only went to my own voting center and exercised my franchise.
Okay.
But of course, our candidates and our party men in some places gave us feedback on what transpired in their various areas of domicile where they exercised their franchise. And just like in a place like Eziago, for instance, because in this just concluded local government election, I must admit the fact that we may not have had a colorful outing in the entire 17 local government councils of Enugu State, because we have our areas of strength, the places that we refer to as our strongholds. Likewise, there are some other places that we never made any major inroad. Like in the Eziago local government, we had a candidate who to a great extent reached out to the electorate prior to that election. And in some wards, in that same Eziago local government council, we had candidates who also campaigned vigorously. But in a place like, for instance, Oye, Ward 9, where we had a candidate who did campaign well in that election, from the information made available to me and to the leadership of Action Alliance in the Enugu State, they were allowed to exercise their franchise on that day. But at the end of the exercise, the NSEC officials who came there to conduct the election never counted the votes cast in that particular election. And likewise, in the ward of the chairmanship candidate of Action Alliance, the same as Eziago local government, Olo ward, we are made to understand that the election never even took place there in the first instance. And going by the feedback we got from various reliable media outlets here in Enugu, the complaint was the same virtually across the state. Like in a place known as Akebugu Ward 2 in Nkano West Local Government Council. Interestingly, we never had any candidate in that particular ward, but the opposition, All Progressives Grand Alliance, had a candidate who had a very colorful outing in that particular election. And I remember vividly that on that day, we had some of the party men of that particular candidate, making it known to the entire world that there was nothing reasonable going on there. So in a nutshell, except if we have the whole time in the world to waste, there wasn't any need going to NSEC office to do whatever. And even doing that may even amount to one endangering one's life, because a whole lot of funny things happen in the name of election under the watch of most of these state governments. And what transpired in Enugu State some days back, just like as was the case in Imo State, is it's a wake-up call for those who so much believe in restructuring, because every now and then you find people clamoring for restructuring, and one of the facets of this argument, this restructuring argument, is the fact that power should be devolved to the various operating units. But I always ask, why should we clamor that state governors should be given more powers, or state government, as the case may be, when they are yet to live up to expectations as far as the ones given to them is concerned? You know, if you take a look at the concurrent legislative list of the Nigerian Constitution, where both the federal and the various operating units, where they wield concurrent powers, you discover that most state governments are not interested, you know, in working on those concurrent powers for the benefit of the citizenry. For instance, agriculture. Agriculture falls within the concurrent legislative list, yet hunger is ravaging the entire Nigerian nation. Why? Many state governors have not deemed fit to diversify the economy of the respective states in order to delve into this facet of our existence that ordinarily make Nigeria a great nation. So what am I trying to say? What transpired in ENUGU State as well as Imo State is an indictment and also a proof to show that it is not yet to uhuru as far as local government autonomy is concerned. But let me quickly point out something based on the question you asked from the word go. The judgment of the Supreme Court will not do everything for us, but believe you me that if the federal government of Nigeria should give life to that particular judgment on financial autonomy, to a great extent, subsequent local government elections may to a great extent be reasonably free and fair. Let me explain. As we all know, local government chairmen, they don't enjoy constitutional immunity. Likewise, the councillors. So if, at the end of the day, if the federal government starts implementing the provisions of this decision, and the federal government lives up to expectation in going after any local government chairman who fails to account for any money given to him, automatically, and of course, why make use of law enforcement agents, automatically you now discover that many persons who actually delve into politics at the local government tier of government may no longer have interest in doing so, knowing full well that if they fail to utilize the funds given to them for the benefit of their people, that they'll be in for a very big trouble. And at the end of because there's this belief that many of them do remit funds given to them to the state governments or state governors, as the case may be. If they now discover that the federal governments can come after them, to a great extent, you may discover that it's only individuals who actually mean well for the society that may be interested in vying for political offices at the local government tier of government. And again, I think the Supreme Court has fired the first shot. The second shot may be on the way. You know, people are clamoring for INEC to take over the conduct of local government council election. But I make bold to say that if you take a look at section 150 of the Nigerian of the Electoral Act 2022, it's a novel provision. This is the first time we are having a provision of that nature in our Electoral Act. And in a nutshell, that provision, if you take a look at section 150, subsections 1, 2, and 3, in a nutshell, this particular section has established the fact that any local government election to be conducted must be conducted the same way area council elections are being conducted. And if you take a look at even section 104 of the same Electoral Act and some other sister provisions, you will discover that to a great extent now, that INEC even has a role to play in the conduct of local government election, at least as far as issues bordering on the voters register is concerned, and you know that the accreditation of voters is also concerned, because beavers and any other technological device can only be made use of by INEC, going by the provisions of the law. Because if you take a look at the second schedule to the Nigerian Constitution, paragraphs 11 and 12, you find out that paragraph 12 empowered the state governments to make laws to regulate local government election. Yet, that same, if you take a look at paragraphs 11 and 12, you discover that any law to be made by the state should not be at variance with the law made by the National Assembly. And the law made by the National Assembly is the Electoral Act. And the Electoral Act has stipulated the procedures to be followed. So what I'm trying to say, I believe that in no distant time, the federal government as well may go back to court again. As I speak, Action Alliance is already in court over this issue with regard to the last local government election in ENUGU State, because the voters register wasn't displayed before the conduct of that election. And also, BVAS wasn't reconfigured. So we wrote INEC prior to the conduct of this election that, look, you want to conduct the election, SEC wants to conduct the election, and the voters register is yet to be displayed, and the BVAS is yet to be configured. They couldn't give us any concrete answer. Rather, we are told to approach the national body of INEC, and you know the time frame within which the election held, we never had enough time, but the matter is still sub judice. In a nutshell, maybe in no distant time, we have a bigger elephant being a stronger force, being the federal government. You know, there are persons who believe that judiciary is not independent, but like what happened in the country some months back with regard to the judgment on financial autonomy, it was a balanced game between two brokers, the federal government and the federating units. So maybe the AG Federation one day wake up and say, okay, let us go to court for the court to interpret the provisions of section 150, in which case you now discover that at the end of the day, we may now have a situation whereby the state electoral commissions will have the powers to conduct local government election, good and fine. But before doing that, on the election day, INEC officials will be there. Before you cast your vote, they will use their technological device, presently being beavers and smart card, to ascertain those who are qualified to vote before you can now vote.
So what will be the role of the NCEC then?
Just to now give you their own ballot paper for you to exercise your franchise. So these are, and automatically, going by, this issue is even, as I speak, is even before the Court of Appeal, that of electronic transfer of results. In which case, if this legal steps being taken, you should see the light of the day. You will discover that on election day, INEC and NSEC officials, or INEC officials and State Electoral Commission officials will work together. They work together in conducting the election. In which case, you want to exercise your franchise, you present your voter's card. NSEC or any other state electoral umpire does not have any business with the use of a voter's card, because it is the Independent National Electoral Commission that is constitutionally saddled with the responsibility of registering voters. So they have to carry out the exercise of ascertaining whether you are qualified to vote or not. Once they are certain that you are qualified, NSEC will now do their work of doing this thing, conducting the election. At the end of the exercise, INEC officials will now be the ones to use their device machine to transmit the results. So I see this happening in no distant time. And I look forward to having activist-inclined judges who will live up to expectation, in giving life to the provisions of Section 7 of the Nigerian Constitution.
Does the guideline of INEC, superimpose that of the guideline of the state? Is it the same thing? Do they use the same guidelines?
Now, let me explain. There's what we call doctrine of covering the field. That doctrine of covering the field is a multifaceted area of law. But in a nutshell, one of the ambits of this doctrine is that if there is any issue that the Constitution or the Constitution has empowered the state governments and federal government to legislate on, then both tiers of government can make laws to regulate that issue. However, whenever there's any conflict between the law made by the state and the federal, that made by the federal overrides that of that made by the state. And that made by the state will be declared null and void to the extent of its inconsistency with that made by the federal. Interestingly, the same doctrine of covering the field also says that if the Constitution has stipulated what is to be done in a given over a given issue, the National Assembly cannot, even in the course of making law, either limit or enlarge the ambit of that particular issue already taken care of by the Constitution. Now, having said that, I made mention of paragraphs 11 and 12 of, I think, part 2 of the second schedule to the Nigerian Constitution. In a nutshell, this place I mentioned now stipulates that state governments can make laws to regulate local government election. They can even have their own guidelines. But whatever you do as a state government through your House of Assembly in the form of lawmaking to regulate local government election must not be a variance with a law made in that regard by the National Assembly. And Section 150 of the Electoral Act has expressly stated that any local government election conducted in Nigeria that is not done the same way elections in the area council Abuja is being conducted is invalid. It is there. In fact, this is the first time that type of resolution is being enacted. In exercise of the powers of the National Assembly, portion to these paragraphs 11 and 12 of the second schedule. In other words, you are free. For instance, any state government is free to make any, or through NSEC, to frame guidelines to regulate how to conduct local government election. But as we have argued, this matter is sub judice, but as just for information purposes, as we have argued that any state government cannot make any law authorizing the cannot make any guideline that will not create room for electronic transmission of results. Because
the reason I ask that is because I wonder who gave them the authority to say, because I've heard that severally, that they're not using beavers, they're not using any machine. It's going to be all manual accreditation, manual voting, everything was manual. And in fact, NSEC, that's going to have the elections tomorrow, that's the Anambra State's Electoral Commission, has said that beavers is not reliable. That they're going to use manual to do all the whole accreditation and everything.
Interestingly, that's why I say that in the coming days, on the nearest future, I see the Supreme Court making a pronouncement on this issue. But I can tell you this morning emphatically, without equivocation, that the provision of the law presently is that before any election is conducted in Nigeria, there must be electronic, there must be put in place a mechanism to ascertain the identity of the person who wants to vote. In fact, this issue went to court, and that was why the local government election of ENUGU State was postponed. That was supposed to hold in February 5th was postponed. Now, look at what happened in that decision. Being the case, I personally handled that case, so I'm conversant with the facts of that case. In that case, Action Alliance relied on this same Section 150. The court agreed with us. The court said because of that campaigns should last for 6 months. That's why this election, even though, interestingly, NSEC also disobeyed that judgment because NSEC went to sleep. But the judgment is there. They never appealed that particular portion. Now, the court now went further to hold that, with regard to the issue of beavers, that the court cannot order NSEC to make use of beavers because, according to the court, that the Supreme Court has done away with beavers. And we said respectfully, my lord, that it is not true. That's why we are now on appeal with regards to that particular part of that judgment, because the Supreme Court has not done away with the use of beavers. You know, my lord respectfully misinterpreted the purport of that judgment of the Supreme Court in Peter Obi's case and Atiku Abubakar case. If you take a look at the case of Oyetola and INEC, the Supreme Court recognizes the fact that beavers is mandatory. And in law, once the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement, until there is express revocation of that particular judgment, that judgment still stands. What the Supreme Court held in cases of Peter Obi and Atiku is that you cannot rely on beavers as a collation facility. In other words, the law still recognizes manual collation. Yet, the law did not do away with that electronic transfer of votes. Let me, so what may not say of what purpose? Yes, it has a purpose because people should be watching IREV to know, okay, whether what was transmitted aligns with what happened at the various polling. The Supreme Court never, I stand to be corrected. And that's what he did. And second, INEC still makes use of beavers. Both use of smart cards. So these issues, they are judicial issues, very, very clearly stated that are not in any manner whatsoever ambiguous. But as I said, maybe one day a stronger force will wake up. No, some of us, we are in court, we are in the opposition fold. Maybe we may not have the muzzle, the legal muzzle. You know, I don't know how to explain it to push across our argument, no matter how sound it may be. But one day maybe the Attorney General of the Federation will wake up and say, okay, through that section 150. And that's why I'm not mentioning it, because one day it may filter into their ears. Because without something modest, it's a new provision. This is taking place for the first time. Many are not aware of it, but I've been singing it. I've been singing this song for a very long time. So one day, the bigger horses will now look at it and say, okay, through there's a loophole somewhere. They will now go back to court. And maybe we will now experience what we call judicial activism. The judges will now give life to it and say, yes, the constitution has empowered you to conduct local government election at the state level, but you must do it the same way area council elections. And it is there. Just go and look at section 150 of the Electoral Act. Very, very clearly stated. So they are just trying to, they are afraid, they are beating us. So no need even calling on INEC. The INEC is already directly empowered to conduct local government election.
Really?
So, yes.
Wow.
Yes. What you just judicial pronouncement. The section, if you look at section 150 and section 104 of the Electoral, there's another provision remaining, but section 150 subsection say any election you conduct that is at variance with the way area council election is being conducted, it is invalid. It is there.
So do you think that's the safeguard that we ensure transparency and accountability in local governments?
To a great extent, INEC has its own challenges as an electoral umpire. It's a well-known fact, but you will also agree with me that the elections conducted by INEC are to a great extent reasonable. Unlike what you normally witness in most elections conducted by state umpires, that even at times, while they are still exercising your franchise, news may filter in that the ruling party has swept. They normally sweep everything, that they have swept the entire positions. You know, and celebration will follow thereafter. So, but if INEC should have a role to play, then to a great extent there will be some modicum of sanity in the process. That's what I believe.
Okay, what risk or challenges do you think could arise from, granting local governments autonomy?
Nothing disadvantage. The only funny thing that may play out if true autonomy is granted local governments, that there may also be room for misappropriation, because if just like let me digress a little, just like financial autonomy for judiciary, I may sound a little bit disappointing, but believe me that yes, theoretically it is good to grant judiciary financial autonomy. And as a lawyer, I won't even stay here this morning to work against it, but going by the working of the Nigerian system, don't be shocked that if financial autonomy is granted judiciary in the true sense of it, unless where you have strong members of the bar and bench to checkmate the head of every given tier of government, that the issue of misappropriation may also come up. Now, coming to the question you asked, the only challenge you may have if financial autonomy is granted the local government tier of government is that most of these chairmen and councillors will also saying that all has become well with them. The issue of misappropriation will now take an alarming proportion, because in fact it's a situation of dilemma. If you allow the state governments to continue being in charge, they on their own will keep misappropriating funds. If you also allow local government chairmen and councillors, because there are many of them may not actually be accountable to the people. But by and large, because it's a constitutional provision, it is good that the financial autonomy is granted. Then it is now be left for the people to live up to expectation and holding them accountable. We can activate provisions of the law like Freedom of Information Act to ask them how they utilize funds that are accrued from the Federation account, because I know that law to a great extent has a life as far as federal government institutions is concerned. So we can activate the provisions of a law like Freedom of Information Act to make inquiries on the amount of money given out to these local government leaders. That's the only challenge I believe we may have. But apart from that, once local government, tier of government starts enjoying true autonomy, it will, to a great extent, help develop the Nigerian nation, because this is the tier of government that brings governance closest to the grassroots.
I mean, in the past, we've seen how local government elections have been conducted, and it's been abysmal, frankly speaking, to say the least. There's no sugarcoating it. But we saw the same atmosphere of abysmality, if there's any word like that, you know, in the last election, local government election. Because, I mean, in places where it looked like something is happening that is genuine, there were fightings. You know, people threatened people. Our station, our staff was even attacked. Another media organization was even attacked in that election. In places where it looked like something wants to change in that particular location. And then you wonder whether really we're ready for this local government administration. Wouldn't it be the same thing? Because we've heard that over and over again, that the governor decides to pick people, you know, here and there to make them local government chairman, and that there is a sharing formula at the end of the month. You just bring this amount. We know the amount that is coming to this local government because you are loyal to the governor. After all, the governor picked you. If the governor did not pick you,
you wouldn't have been there.
You wouldn't have been a local government chairman. So your allegiance is to the governor, not to the people. After all, the votes did not even count. So when the governor tells you, out of 200 million naira that you receive this month, bring 120 million or bring 80 million, then the rest you can do whatever you want with it. Either you do small healthcare center or you pay salaries. Those things will still come up again because, I mean, the allegiance, even with this so-called pronouncements that local governments should be autonomous financially. I mean, we still see it brazenly happening like, you know, nothing. Don't you think that it's the same thing that's going to happen?
No, it will not to a great extent be dependent on the body language of the federal government. If the federal government decides to go after local government chairmen and councillors, you will now be left with two options. Either to utilize the funds given to you for the benefit of the people, or you go to jail because they don't enjoy constitutional immunity.
How many people have government gone after?
That's why I'm saying that it is dependent on the body language of the federal government, not the state government, because it is the federal government that is pushing this agenda of financial autonomy. So if the federal government decides to sleep, it's business as usual. But if the federal government decides to live up to the, believe you me that these particular judgments will bring sanity in the system. Because they don't enjoy constitutional immunity. This will not be like the case of governors who will say that I cannot go after them because they enjoy constitutional immunity. So it's a case of, yes, ENUGU Local Government Council, we limited 10 billion naira to you from Federation account between January and March. Let us see the projects you executed with the funds remitted to you. You know, this judgment basically has to do with the funds accruing from the Federation account.
Yes.
The internally generated revenue is even out of it.
Yes.
But of course, federal governments, because we practice a so-called federal system of government, so the judgment never took care of internally generated revenue, which is excellent. But the federal government can now say, yes, we remitted 1 naira to you in the month of January. Let us see what you utilize the funds for. If you're unable to render proper account of what you utilize that 1 naira for, then we send law enforcement agents after you, and they'll pick you up. So if the federal government decides to enforce this law, believe you me that to a great extent, state governors will start losing interest in what happens. They may only keep installing their stooges as local government leaders just to massage their political ego. So let it not be that you allow members of the opposition to be in control of the political structure of the state. But as far as the funds of the tier of government is concerned, to a great extent, you as a chairman, doing otherwise, will be sending yourself to the jail. You'll be left the option of either utilizing this fund, either pleasing the government back on the 21st of this month when this election was conducted. There's one thing we should appreciate about local government election. We have to be realistic, unless you want us to be to start being evasive this morning. If you take a look at a country like India, what you call local government, tier of government here is what they call their own panchayat system. But in a nutshell, while framing a constitution of a nation, it is good to have a people-oriented constitution, a constitution whereby the people will sit down, come together, and decide how they will govern themselves. That is the way it is being done. Taking a look at the peculiarities of a given environment. Let me give an example. It is an offense now to spray Naira currency. But somehow it forms part of the Igbo custom here. I don't even know it's only Igbo people or the entire Nigerians to spray money. Now, if it has been some crimes, it should not be criminalized. You will say, okay, you have to have respect for the currency of this nation. But because of people's custom, if you want to spray money during it, maybe do it this way, do it that way, because of the peculiarity. Another example, in the same India, because of the Hindu religion, cow is seen as a sacred animal. Whereas Muslims in India, who of course form part of the minority community there in India, they do consume beef. It's usually a very serious issue between the Hindu-dominated Indians and the Muslims. Now, this issue found its way in the Indian constitution. That, okay, no problem. The Muslim-dominated states, good and fine, you can continue eating your beef, but while doing that, you must do it in a secluded place so as not to offend the sensibilities of others. What am I trying to say? In local government election, let us tell ourselves the truth. The issue of indigene and not indigenship should be looked into. If actually we want to have a system that will work, a situation whereby you say, yes, you claim you are an indigene, you claim you are not indigene. Non-indigenes who pay taxes, who help develop a state, who help develop a place, they should also be given a sense of belonging, while also not doing away with the interest, the political and economic interest, social, politically of the natives. Do you know that you can have a constitution whereby we say, okay, in local government election, it is mandatory that in every urban city, urban area, that 50%, every political party must ensure that for a given on a rotational basis that non-indigenes only must field candidates in a given ward on rotational basis. Yeah. And the law may even go for to say that, let's say, because of the multi-ethnic nature of the Nigerian society, that, for instance, only Yorubas, in the first 2 years, only Yorubas or let's say non-Igbos, for instance, will vie for councillorship positions in Igbo-dominated states. And non-Yorubas, for instance, will run for political offices in Yoruba states, in municipal areas. Now, you are bringing equity and equality. Why? What is happening here is also happening here. That means non-indigenes are contesting here, non-indigenes are also contesting here. Because these are realities, except if you want to shy away from it. But these are some issues that ordinarily are being taken care of in constitutions, where we have the people's constitution in true sense of it. Constitution whereby people will sit down and discuss how are we going to live with one another. That look, you cannot just do it with non-indigenes, because these issues normally come up. Except if you want to politically correct, these issues come up. But when Okeke discovers that what happens in ENUGU happens in Sokoto, that is the same rule everywhere, he says, okay, automatically, they can now start looking for capable non-indigenes. In fact, it may even give rise to societal cohesion, whereby you now find non-indigenes trying to align with indigenes for the purpose of winning. You see that unity, then let's start accruing money. People will now start going for those who will actually deliver the goods. So all these bickerings of you are trying to dominate us in our place, all these bickerings with a great extent be taken care of. So these are some of the issues that normally come up at times. Even the issue of political structure and the rest of them say that the ruling party wins. You have to look at some of the subtle factors behind some of these things playing out, which definitely is not even auguring well for the society. It's retrogressing the society.
Right. He who pays the piper dictates the tune, frankly speaking. So it will mean that the local government administration will be, its allegiance will be straight to the federal government, because it's the federal government that pays the money that, directly to the local government. And I'm just wondering, do you think also that it's politically motivated, given that, I mean, everybody wants to do things that will favor them? Do you think this move in some way favors the federal government? If, for instance, the government does not like the state government, you don't like the face of the state government in power, it could use the local government chairman to go against the governor.
I will not rule that out. Nigeria is a very funny nation. You may see a very laudable policy or step being put in place. Before you know it, some persons will start abusing it. Many of us are already crying about the federal structure of Nigeria. We claim to be a federal nation, yet in the true sense of it, Nigeria is like a unitary state. However, you may also not be quick in blaming the federal government, because most state governments, they do abuse power, like the issue of state police. In a true federal nation, state police shouldn't be an issue. But you and I know what will most likely happen if you have state police. If you have state police, a governor may wake up one morning and say, I don't like Ogbe's face, or Ogbe is not too tall like Charles. Because of that, Ogbe has committed an offense of being too short, contrary to Section 1. And look at most state laws, the way the state laws are being made. Even this ENUGU, That means that even as a lawyer, the local government board, they have been amended without our knowledge, without the requisite publicity being. In fact, there is this rumor making the rounds that the law is being amended for that to extend the tenure of office of the now-elected chairman to 4 years. I wouldn't know how true that but it's I've seen the publication to that effect on about 2 different social media platforms. But let me leave it at that. But I know that the local government law of Enugu State was even amended this year without our knowing it. In this same Enugu State, there was a law enacted. They call it, I think, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law. We never knew about it during the COVID-19 era because a high-ranking professor pushed that particular law. The then governor of Enugu State, in line with the House of Assembly members, they gave it life without public contribution. And that's why today in Enugu State, spousal rape is now an offense. And many people are even ignorant of that. That spousal rape is now an offense in Enugu. In other words, tomorrow your wife can wake up and accuse you of raping. Yeah, in Enugu State, many people don't even know. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Why? Because of the type of lawmakers we have. So, of a truth, on the face of it, this decision given by the Supreme Court is a laudable decision that should ordinarily benefit the system. But don't be surprised that tomorrow we may have a federal government that may play something akin to the allegation being leveled against federal government in those states that if you are no longer in good terms with federal government, maybe they will ensure that there is free and fair election in your territory so that local government chairmen from the position 4 will now emerge, and these are the ones that are being in charge of various local governments during the election, in which case indirectly they will not bully you. But if you don't want that to happen, then there should be good governance, because I believe if you govern well as a governor, to a great extent, in as much as your party may not sweep the entire thing at the local government tier of government, but if you have quite a sizable number of your party men in charge of the various local government through good democratic process, it will even be an indirect indication that you even do well when it's your own turn, for your own election to be conducted. But this idea of a governor waking up, or the state electoral commission fixing the day for election, and before you know it, even before the election, some people will start celebrating that they have already won, that they're just waiting for the mere formality. And like what happened in the Enugu, I went to exercise my franchise, and I discovered that they made use of the ballot paper that was used in conducting the election when we had, I think, 42 political parties. Because there are many political parties there. I saw many now registered political parties on the ballot paper. So they never even printed new ballot papers. And some persons came out and you are speaking grammar that the election is free and fair, it has been conducted in accordance with the law. It depends on the law they are talking about.
Wow.
It may be conducted in accordance with their whims and caprices. So these are the issues so the federal government may decide. But if the state governments, if they do not want undue interference, the right thing should be done. Like under the watch of now Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State, despite being an APC governor, he conducted what I would refer to as a reasonably free and fair local government election in his state. Now the current government of Kaduna State went and amended that law. Under Governor El-Rufai, there was an electronic electronic voting that was in place there. Yes. This person has changed it. So it depends on the mindset, the way a governor views the entire thing.
So what safeguard might be needed to ensure that states don't interfere in the local government autonomy?
People should keep engaging the government of the day. And then legally inclined fellows should, go back to the courts. We are already in court. National Alliance in Enugu State, we are already in court over some of these issues I discussed. Okay. The bigger forces, or the stronger forces rather, should also approach the courts. I'm not saying we are not strong, but those who are stronger for now may approach the court for judicial interpretation. So once there is judicial pronouncement, then on our own part, we play in our roles, a set of us to play, to ensure that this state of government gets better, so that it will be for the benefit of the Nigerian people.
Thank you very much. It's been an awesome time with you, Barrister Chukwunonso Ogbe, CD Ogbe. Yes, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
And that's the most we can take for that this morning. We're going to take a short break. After that, we head ahead to another segment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're watching Signature Morning. We're headed over to entertainment updates. Do stay with us.
What's hot, what's not, and what is happening now? I am your host, Quincy Rowland, and this is Entertainment News. Moving on, we have Nigerian cross-dresser Idris Okuneye, a.k.a. Bobrisky, has reflected on suicide amid allegations of 50 million naira bribery against him. Popular activist and social media influencer Martins Vincent, aka Very Dark Man, had released an audio of Bobrisky offering 50 million naira to the cooperative of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The money was meant for the anti-graft agency to drop money laundering cases against him and also to avoid his jail term at the Kirikiri Correctional Center in Lagos State. The cross-dresser, however, denied the content of the audio, describing it as fake. However, in a Facebook post, Bobrisky said he is considering suicide due to attempts to belittle him. We have Kiss Daniel has been celebrating a decade at the top of Afrobeats music via his Vado at 10 World Tour. Kiss Daniel continues to celebrate a decade of musical excellence with the release of two highly anticipated singles, Mahaba and We Must. These new tracks are part of the ongoing festivities surrounding his Vado at 10 anniversary, commemorating 10 years of groundbreaking hits, global recognition, and unwavering fan support. The Arabic word Mahaba, which translates to welcome or hello in English, is one of the most widely used expressions in Northern Africa and the Middle East. It deeply resonated with Kiss Daniel during his short but memorable time there and served as a major influence in the creation of the song. Meanwhile, We Must, produced by the acclaimed IZ, known for his successful collaborations with Kiss Daniel and prolific Nigerian producer Blaze Beat, is a song sure on its way to becoming a household anthem that speaks to resilience and determination. We have iconic Greek singer Marinella has suffered a stroke mid-performance. The 86-year-old songstress collapsed on Wednesday night during a concert at Athens' Herod Atticus Theatre. The incident happened when the singer lost her balance and collapsed during her third song on stage. The concert, which was also set to feature Greek singers like Athonis Romas, was immediately cancelled. A statement released by Hegel Hospital on Thursday stated that Marinella is currently being treated in the intensive care unit for severe brain bleeding. And we have giant pandas, An and KK, a gift from Beijing to Hong Kong, arrived in the Chinese territory on Thursday to much fanfare, with officials welcoming them at the city's international airport. The Sichuan-born male and female pandas will take Hong Kong's total panda count to 6, the most ever in the financial hub, with some lawmakers calling for the city to develop a panda economy with panda-themed promotions and infrastructure to boost tourism. The panda pair, both aged 5, will be housed at the city's Ocean Park theme park, located on the south side of the island. Officials said that they will be kept away from the public until December so they can get familiar with their new habitats. Meanwhile, Hong Kong residents and tourists expressed excitement over the arrival of 2 Chinese giant pandas on Thursday, anticipating the chance to meet them in few months. Ocean Park has introduced panda-themed cakes and cookies in an effort to draw more local and international visitors, aiming to provide a boost to the park's income. The show may be over, but the buzz continues. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us on all our social media platforms. Keep it locked with entertainment news for more. I am Quincy Rowland. Stay fabulous and stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Internet Watch, where we bring you the latest buzz from the online world. I'm your host, Joshua Ritogun. I'll be guiding you through today's hottest stories, from viral posts to trending topics. I've got you covered. Now, kicking things off with a bit of fun, a post recently went viral showcasing some of the hottest and, might I say, cheesiest pickup lines that men are using these days. Just in case you are single, you might want to come close, bring out your jotter and jot some things down, you know. So, single people, come for inspirations. So, these lines are making the rounds on social media with people debating whether they are smooth or cringe-worthy. Let's have it. Villager commented, "This is one I love. I love this one so much." Here it goes. "My mother wanted to be a lawyer but failed. With you, her dream will finally come true, and you will make her a mother-in-law." What? Ladies, that was good. Honestly, if I was a girl and they use this one for me, it doesn't mean that I'm cheap. I just liked it a lot. Next, I'm not even playing cards, but somehow I put a queen. Oh my God. These are for people who play cards. You will understand this pickup line more. If you're a dumb lady, I'm sorry, you might not get it. JJ commented, "Are you my mom's slippers? Cause you hit me differently." Oh my God. Single people, tell me thank you for all I'm doing for you. Solomon had 700 wives and still treated all of them specially. Imagine how special you would be if you were to be the only one for me. Come off it now. Smasher commented, "Can I send you money?" Which is the most accurate one. It works anytime. Send your account number. That's one of the best pickup line ever. Do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again? Single people, please. I'm doing a lot for you people. Cedric Otulu said, I downloaded Tinder so I could find someone, but I guess I now have a reason to delete it because I have found you. Chai, nah. Are you Wi-Fi? Because I'm really feeling a connection. You're welcome. Guys, you can use this anywhere, anytime. You can use this to do your pickup line. So finally would you send me, yes, I love this one. This guy was smart. Hear it. It says, "Would you please send me your pictures? I would want to show kids in Sunday school how God's angel look like." If I tell a lady this one now, the lady should feel it. Feel it. Can I have a picture of you, please? I would like to show the Sunday school teachers or the Sunday school kids what an angel looks like. Single people, I've helped you people today. And I mean, I've been always serious for the past few days now. I've been talking about serious issues. So I just wanted to, calm the nerves before I dive into the next story. So the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has filed fresh charges against Yahaya Bello, the former governor of Kogi State. According to Daily Trust, these new charges allege fraud amounting to a staggering 110.4 billion naira. This comes on the heels of existing charges of money laundering to the tune of 80.2 billion naira. The EFCC's legal team, led by senior advocate of Nigeria, Kemi Pehiro, and Rotimi Oyedepo, along with 7 other lawyers, has taken these charges forward on behalf of the federal government. But it doesn't end here. The former governor is fighting back. He has taken the EFCC to the Supreme Court, challenging their decision to declare him wanted. Despite this, the EFCC remains determined to pursue full prosecution of the 80.2 billion naira money laundering case. Bello, who was originally the sole defendant in a 19-count charge, is now facing a new 16-count charge alongside 2 other Kogi officials, Abdusalami Hudu and Umar Oricha. Now, the legal battle is heating up, and we'll keep a close watch on how this develops. I mean, this is a hot cake. What do you think about this? Drama to and fro. Let's have it. I mean, it has been up and down for like the past 3 days now. Yahaya Bello has been up. Finally, he came out of hiding, and I think he went to plan. Strategic planning, and now he's coming out back to back, and he's on the news with EFCC every time. Trust me, I'm going to keep you updated. I'm not going to leave you outside. Anything that happens between him, and there's a reason. There is a personal reason why I'm doing this, because I'm not just going to say anything, but I come from a place too as well. But that's by the way. So I'm going to take it to the comment section to see how people are reacting to this. Comment section right away. The emperor, the lion, the conqueror, and the champion is here. What is the meaning of this prosecution and counter-prosecution between EFCC and Yahaya? So, at this point, EFCC cannot arrest Yahaya Bello like they normally arrest people or perceive their old boys before trial. EFCC is not a sincere organization. I mean, calling it, black and white, calling a spade, simple. I mean, you cannot just arrest him. He's a former governor. Before I used to be scared of the EFCC, but now I'm more scared of Yahaya Bello because that guy, what? This will drag for another 4 years. At the end of the day, nothing would happen. Don't worry. This time around, the public are involved and will want to hear, will want to get answers. Exactly. Rachel commented, Nigerians are applying pressure. EFCC is now filing new charges. It's not internet fraudster you will be pursuing. Go after politicians too. I mean, you can just be perceived as a Yahoo boy and you'll be picked up. But then politicians too need to be to account for what they've done. It's concerning to see such serious allegations against the former governor, especially with the significant amount involved. The legal proceedings will be closely watched as they unfold. It will be interesting to see how this impacts Kogi State's political landscape moving forward. I mean, if he gets away with this, it means that any other person can come and get away with it. It's just logical. I'm just saying. UJ is saying, wow, see figures, generational wealth. How was it even possible in the first place? The government isn't any stupid. Listen to this. The government isn't any stupid of the people, blah, blah, blah. Do you get what he was saying? Just sarcastically, he was trying to define what democracy is. So he's saying the government isn't any stupid of the people, blah, blah, blah. NJ News is saying major legal troubles for Yahaya Bello. The EFCC has filed serious charges of fraud and money laundering against him. It's a developing situation to watch closely. Hashtag Yahaya Bello, hashtag EFCC, hashtag breaking news. I mean, it is breaking. And it is a news. I have, this matter still on. EFCC never ready. EFCC never ready, not just to whine Nigerians. I mean, everybody just believe that this up and down, back and forth is really not necessary. Come on, 10 people, arrest him once, the way you do to your old boys. Dr. Edem commented, Yahaya Bello deprived and subjected the whole state into hunger and darkness. And his boy, the incumbent or the ceremonial governor, is following the instruction given to him by his boss, the past governor. Indirectly, Yahaya Bello is still the governor of Kogi State. Pathetic. Really pathetic. I mean, you could see. This is not me speculating or coming out with theories that are not. We saw what happened when EFCC wanted to arrest Yahaya Bello. The current governor of Kogi State came in, like you see in movies, and then he just saved him. Gesture. EFCC isn't serious. Same man that walked into your office, there is nothing to hold him on. He left, and we are hearing all these charges. Make una no allow EFCC why no na them there. Like, it's just logical to start assuming this thing. I mean, someone is wanted, you haven't gotten him. The policemen and DSS around him have not arrested him yet. And rather than focusing on arresting him, you are busy filing cases for someone who you haven't apprehended. How does this make sense to you at official EFCC? It's a big question. Arrest him first. I mean, it's just logical, you know. Arrest him, and then, let me read the final comment. So, we have existing agencies that only do their job against civilians, but not against public officers. This is really sad. I mean, if you take a look at it, if this was just a civilian doing his or her thing, then you see so much effort, so much level of degree of seriousness they use in getting this person. But now he's a political figure. I mean, he's a politician, former governor of Kogi State. Everybody should be held accountable. I'm saying this because it's true. Everybody should be held accountable. Everybody should be able to account to whatever it is they have done. Especially if you were a governor of a state, for crying out loud. I mean, you should be able to account for what you did with the funds of the state. It's not yours. It is that of the state. Well, don't forget, you can also be a part of this conversation by commenting on this page. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for commenting, because I can see you commenting. So thank you very much. Don't forget to go to all of our social media platforms. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are there. Well, and that's a wrap for today's edition of Internet Watch. We've had the mix of stories from light-hearted pickup lines. You're welcome, by the way, to serious legal issues. Remember, we will be back with more trending topics and updates from the online world. But before we go, Here is today's word of wisdom. Come close, come close, come close. Truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it, let it loose, and it will defend itself. In everything you do, always seek the truth, and it will stand the test of time. My name is Joshua Ritogun. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay informed and stay connected.
You're still on Signature Morning, on Signature Television this morning, all right? And I got to know that there is today we talked about World Tourism Day. So there is a little tour to South Africa. I'm talking about the MTN Media Innovation Program. So Charles, what is this all about?
Yeah, so every year since the last 3 years, MTN organizes this program. It's called the Media Innovation Program.
Okay.
It's just basically giving media professionals the opportunity to enhance their skill in whatever craft that they're in.
Okay.
You know, whether it's radio, TV, or newspaper and digital, as the case may be. This year, I think they had a content creator. So it's just an opportunity that MTN has built to create an enabling environment for people to basically have access to some knowledge from industry experts to improve their skill in media, distribution, entrepreneurship. There's several courses and models that we have gone through that enhances our skill in the thought of broadcasting. So that's what exactly the media innovation is.
So what's the
about.
experience like?
It has been really reinvigorating. It's been eye-opening. It made me see more to media than just broadcasting. I mean, you could broadcast because you just like broadcasting, but of course it is about impact. If you're doing broadcasting without the thought of an impactful life to another person who is basically watching or maybe following up, then that probably you are wasting your time. So it opened my eyes to the entrepreneurship life as part of this media thing. It also opened my eye to innovation. At the end of the cohort, you are actually asked to develop a business.
Okay. Is it a business and media?
Yes, that's relating to media. So you would develop a business, how to run it, and basically how to go about creating a media business for yourself and of course for the cohorts. It's more like a packaged project for every single media innovation. I mean, if you go through that process and you don't know how to do certain things, especially in media, if you're not enhanced, I really don't know where you can get enhancements.
So where exactly did you have this experience? Where in South Africa? Okay,
so it's a 6-week, 6-month course, 1 week every month for 6 months. One of the weeks in the 6 months would be a tour to South Africa, which we have gone and come back. And it all happened in Johannesburg. We visited the University of Wits, we visited University of Johannesburg, and we also were able to meet with prominent people, the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Mr. Morolong. We also met with the former President of South Africa. I'm talking about Mr. Thabo Mbeki, and it was really interesting having to speak with him as relates to governance in Africa. He spoke about Pan-Africanism. I mean, he's been in the forefront of unity in Africa and Pan-Africanism, and so there's a whole lot that I basically have.
Like you said, there's a whole lot, and we've just been taking the snippet. So let's take a look at the main program, the full package. All right, we will be bringing you the full package. Stay around and take a watch.
South Africa, the gold land, the motherland, the country that everyone wants to be at. Fantastic place. The landscape, it's unbelievable. That's why most Africans love to visit South Africa, including Nigerians. But did you know that young South Africans have this particular perception about Nigerians living in South Africa? You want to know what the perceptions are? Let's find out.
when we listen to this podcast about girls who share their experiences with Nigerian men, it's very scary. And I have been very wary of Nigerian men. I'm scared of Nigerian men. I don't know why. Because you would hear stories such as like, no, they come here, they sleep with you to get your luck, they feed on your luck, you never be anything in life. They have snakes apparently. So, and I'm someone who's scared of snakes, so I can't risk that. So I think my perspective on Nigerian guys is mostly based on what people had to say. I've never had a one-on-one encounter with a Nigerian person, either a girl or a boy.
So I would say that people that you see on the street and the people that you come to live together with and learn from are two different people. Like there is to life, the good and bad. And we just happen to have the bad apples from Nigeria tainting the good image that the people of Nigeria have established for themselves.
There are people that South Africans blame for everything that's going wrong. There's unemployment, they will say Nigerians are taking jobs. There's drugs, they will say Nigerians are selling drugs. There's crime, they will blame it on Nigerians. When something is done by a Nigerian, it's reported widely, because even a South African can be caught abroad selling drugs. Our media won't report it like that.
I think they are the most talkative people. They talk a lot, to be honest. You will try to get one idea across your mind, then the next thing they talk about something else. So I feel like they are so talkative and they are so smart. One thing about our Nigerian brothers is that they are very smart and and also business-minded people as well.
The crime that are committed by by Nigerian people in our country, they're always through South African people, because these people they know the streets of our country. So it's unfortunate that I have to go against everyone and say we have to deal with our people first, because every crime through that is done by Nigeria, done by people from African countries and like outside our continent as well. They are true South African people.
What an interesting perspective from the young South Africans giving their opinions about Nigerians living in their country. But a section of the professionals have something a little different. They put some context to it.
And there are things that fuel, what I call unfair xenophobia and hatred, where people think that the whole crime in South Africa is only committed by Zimbabweans. Drugs are only peddled by Nigerians, and cash heists are done by Mozambicans. There are South Africans who are also part of those criminal networks. But these are things that contribute to, the straining of relationships. These are things that continue to say there'll always be this tense relationship between the two countries. But I think what the two governments need to really look at and urgently address is from the societal point of view, not the diplomatic one, but the intercultural and intersocietal of how the two nations can relate with one another. They are two of Africa's biggest superpowers, but let's not lie to each other. There are underlying issues, and those need to be spoken about, and that can only be led from a civil society level.
I find them very admirable, hardworking, very dedicated, disciplined people, which are sentiments that I also echo, perceptions I also echo. But I think when it comes to the ground and local communities, there's perceptions about them being involved in selling drugs and all those social ills that are associated with society. So I think it depends on where you find a particular Nigeria, in which community in South Africa you find them and what you find them doing for a living. One of the things that fuels negative perceptions around them is that social media tends to focus on one angle of Nigerians. Yes, we know in all contexts, there's good people, there's bad people that are involved in different things. But you'd find that because social media is all about promoting things that create conversations and are popular, we find that most of the time the negative side of Nigerians are the ones, the viewpoints that are present in the media that get people talking and that people talk.
You know, most South Africans, you know, don't have any negative feelings against Nigerians. Obviously, there is a tug of war between these superpowers because Nigeria and South Africa are two big countries in Africa, and obviously because of that, you tend to see that there's a lot of friction that often happens, sometimes political, geopolitical positioning, but it doesn't mean that the ordinary South African has got any negative feelings. Yes, cases can be raised around maybe the issue of Chidima, where people were talking about so many other things online, but generally the ordinary person is of the understanding that we are all Africans, we deserve to live in the same continent.
Members of the MTN Media Innovation Program while in South Africa expressed concerns about the strained relationship between the two nations.
We're here at the South African Institute for International Affairs.
So the narration in Nigeria is that South Africans hate Nigerians, and the narration in South Africa is that Nigerians are mostly criminals fighting for their already scarce resources, but this is not entirely true.
The lectures we got today was not inspiring, it was depressing for me because Africa has a myriad of challenges and problems. Fighting each other shouldn't be one of those problems.
The xenophobic attacks on Nigerians, and from our conversation I found out that it could be that there are some people benefiting from this, right? And it doesn't really speak well because it's sort of selfish.
But what I saw today is that South Africans are sort of giving up hope that nothing can be done.
Nigerian who has lived most of his life in South Africa, he tells me the hate doesn't really exist, it's just a perception.
And the xenophobic tensions in South Africa and between South Africa and Nigeria are really just boiling down perceptions. It's strictly a perception issue, and perceptions are driven and drawn by narratives. And these narratives need to be corrected, they need to be fact-checked, and they also need to be very much, authenticated.
Even the South African statistics don't show that most crimes committed in South Africa are done by Nigerians.
The successes attained by the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, DPCI, during the first quarter of 2024-2025 financial year. During this period, the Directorate secured convictions on 506 accused. Of these convictions, 262 accused persons, inclusive of 12 juristic persons, were sentenced, while the balance of 244, which include 15 juristic persons, are to be sentenced on the dates after this quarter under review. One of the 262 sentenced natural persons, 173 are South Africans, while 77 are foreign nationals. The top sentenced foreign nationals are 27 Zimbabweans, Lesotho with 14 convicts, Mozambique with 10 convicts. The rest are divided among the other countries. Most of these convictions and sentences were secured in the Northwest Province with 51.
During a discussion with Stephen Grust of the South African Institute of International Affairs, he tried to trace the history of the two countries' diplomatic role as far back as 1995.
So I know I'm not doing this in a historical order, but if you think back to 1995, when Sani Abacha was the president of Nigeria, and there was the big case of the Ogoni activists, including Ken Saro-Wiwa. Mandela believed that he had been given assurances that they would not be executed. He went to the Commonwealth Summit in Auckland in New Zealand, and while he was there, Abacha put Saro-Wiwa and 8 others to death. And Mandela was devastated, very angry, and moved in 1995 for Nigeria's suspension from the Commonwealth. That didn't go down well. And in fact, he had to backtrack, And South Africa learned a lesson that they should not be too far out of step with what Africa is doing, and it's not good to embarrass another African country in public. And I think that's had an effect. Maybe good because it's increased intra-African solidarity and Pan-Africanism, but I think it's also made South Africa very wary of criticizing other countries.
He also mentioned that it has taken South Africa a long time to even acknowledge the problem.
It's taken a long time for the South African government to recognize and accept that xenophobia is a problem. I mean, I work on the African peer review mechanism, and it was the 15th anniversary of the establishment of the mechanism, and President Thabo Mbeki was at the event, and I asked a very pertinent question. I said, when the peer review mechanism examined South Africa in 2007, it identified latent xenophobia and said this is a phenomenon that must be nipped in the bud and must be taken seriously. Mr. President, do you wish that if you went back all those years, you would have taken it a little bit more seriously? And he said, I'm not going to answer your question. And then he proceeded to answer my question for an hour. But he said, you know, a lot of it is just criminals taking advantage of this, and it's not really a problem. And the Zambian ambassador stood up and said, Mr. President, with respect, and you know when somebody says, with respect, what's coming next? He said, you know, my nationals are really suffering here. There have been people killed. There have been businesses destroyed. There have been homes destroyed. So I think it's taken a long time for the government to actually acknowledge it's a problem.
Former President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa thinks the conversation on Pan-Africanism has completely lost steam.
And so when you raise this matter about the movement of Africans among themselves, you are talking to people who no longer have that very strong sense of a Pan-African common belonging. It's a problem. We discussed this question in this country about the rules and regulations this country has with regard to other people, Africans in the first instance. It's a battle to convince the people who actually practically handle this thing every day to say, but you need a system which encourages interaction among the Africans, not to exclude people, but to include. So it's related, I'm saying, to the political. Politically, what has happened on the continent is a regression from the kind of Pan-Africanist commitment that you had with other earlier leaders. You know, the part of the problem that I see is a decline in commitment to a Pan-Africanism, that sense of a strong Pan-Africanism among our political leadership is this kind of receded.
Members of MT and MIP have some action plans.
You know, so if we keep feeding this narrative, if we keep keying into people's perception of both countries, we are not going to solve this problem. So how do we solve the problem? Let's amplify the good things about both countries. Let's amplify the best of both worlds.
And one of the things that stood out for me is the fact that we need to push out more positive stories of international relations, right? I mean, a lot of things are happening which are on the negative side, but there are positive stories that can be pushed out.
So I really believe that if we work together, if we look at the positive sides of both countries, it's really going to help us. And we stop wasting time on things that separate us. Rather, we'll build ourselves and we become a better country together.
But I also went away with the fact that the role of the media in bridging this gap cannot be understated. So for us as the media in Nigeria, I have been challenged to make sure I partner other African journalists to tell the right narratives about Africa, for Africa, to the globe.
The chairman of MTN Group, Sebi C. Jonas, echoed how the world has so much changed over time, reiterating what exactly people are more concerned about right now.
So people are increasingly looking at politicians differently now. The world is moving in a more pragmatic space. where it is about how the economy gets strong, how do we ensure inclusivity, how do we ensure the youth have jobs, and how do we ensure that there's greater trade, etc. So it's becoming more focused on practical stuff as opposed to ideological stuff. I mean, and any politician that comes back to you and say, I'm ideological, you must know they are lying.
Now we know where that skewed narrative comes from. Social media, an isolated case blown out of proportion, and a particular section of the society, that's the political class, trying to use closed borders as a means to push narratives that are so wrong. Well, so when next you hear these narratives, show them this video at least, and maybe put it in context. There's unity in diversity, as a matter of fact, and it's about time to rebuild Africa, not to destroy. Thanks for watching.
Wow, this is something. I'm telling you, this is beautiful.
That needed to speak to me regarding that, and like I mentioned, look, there are isolated matters. These matters can be isolated. You cannot say you are able to apprehend somebody down the street and he is a South African person, and then it's all over the place. The South African media industry broadcasts everything that it was a Nigerian who did the stealing, and then there's no other stealing going on every other places that are not South African. And even the statistics that I have shown show that most of the crime that happened in South Africa, according to this year's statistics given by the Hawks chairman, said it's South African, 75% of it. Then the others are other African countries and nationals, not Nigerians. So that narrative is mostly skewed. So some things can happen and it will be blown out of proportion. And because it is Nigeria, they want to pin it on Nigeria, and then the thing goes viral. Then it becomes that, oh, it's Nigerians that are doing it. So
okay,
there is that
about that
consciousness there.
Yeah, talking about that this morning, we have Chigachi Eke. Good morning, Mr. Chigachi.
Good morning, please.
How are you doing this morning?
Great. It's all right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We've had the report that you were in South Africa.
Yes, I was in South Africa for 8 years, and I schooled there also. I did my postgraduate studies at the University of the Witwatersrand between 2003 and 2005.
Okay, so
then between 2000 and in 2009, I was the National Secretary for ENUGU in South Africa. Okay. So I was involved in the public life of and economic life of Nigerians in South Africa.
Interesting.
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. What is having this background, in South Africa already? I guess you have the relationship, the relationship between Nigerians and South Africans. So, what is this tension, between Nigerians and Nigerians residing in South Africa and South Africans themselves?
Yeah, there must always be crises and tensions when relations are poorly managed. In the first place, to understand what I mean, look at during the days of struggle against apartheid, Nigeria was in the forefront in the liberation of South Africa. Then when Nelson Mandela died, Nigerian leaders were given the back seats at his funeral. And the question is why? It's because of poor management of the Nigerian-South African relations. Nigerian government failed to be proactive. When South Africans started complaining that Nigerians were committing crime in their country, we only started shouting when South Africans took action. In other words, nobody did anything at the point of aggression. We only started like the typical, so to say, fire brigade approach when South Africans now reacted. To go straight to the point, the problem, we don't have a healthy, at the official level or even at the unofficial level, we don't have a healthy relationship with South African government or with South Africans. And the reason is squarely that Nigerians are committing horrible crimes in South Africa. Nigerians are into big-time illicit drug. that kills South African children. Nobody complains or hears the lamentation of South African parents when their children die of drugs sold them by Nigerians. We only start complaining when we hear that South Africans are killing Nigerians. Look at what is happening in our own country today. In the 1980, 90, and early 2000, Nigeria was a drug transit country. Nobody was selling drugs to Nigerian children.
Yeah.
But today,
Mr. Chikachi,
we are a drug-consuming country. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I mean, you said Nigerians are committing heinous crimes in South Africa.
Yes.
But according to latest statistics, the crimes that are committed in South Africa are South Africans themselves. That's according to state published records.
You have to be a bit audible, please.
Okay, according to the latest record,
yeah,
it shows that South Africans are the most committing the most crimes in South Africa. The rest are in the scale of the crimes, the people who have been convicted.
Okay.
The numbers are not showing that Nigerians are the ones committing those heinous crimes. So it is not to the scale that you are talking about it. Yes, there could be 1 or 2, 3 isolated cases, but there are other people who commit these crimes. And according to the numbers, more than 70% of the crimes committed in South Africa are actually South Africans.
Okay.
So how do you react to that?
Can I make a response?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, you must know that crime has got patterns. When you talk of homicide, it is purely a South African issue. Killing of manslaughter, murder, and all the rest of them. Nigerians don't do that. And why we don't do that in South Africa is because South Africa is a country that licenses citizens to carry firearms. We are bad shooters. I lived among South Africans. I transacted. The building I lived in South Africa wasn't my own. So I know our thinking. But when you talk of drugs and you talk of scamming, 419, you are talking of Nigerians. I'm a Nigerian man, Igbo man. And we are talking of how to solve a problem. And so if you want to know the truth, you must be able to open your mind and face the truth. Because self-appraisal without self-criticism, so to say, is self-deception.
Okay, Mr. Chikachi.
Hold on, I'm coming, ma. All right, you go ahead.
Oh, okay, I wanted to ask, is there any statistics that support this thing you're talking about right now?
No, there is no statistics as such which I can cite.
So how do you measure the accuracy?
Hold on. But if you were to Google Igbo lives in South Africa, I repeat, quote, Igbo lives in South Africa. I authored that report. And the president of Ohaneze Igbo, Chief Badwin Obasi, appointed a committee, and I was the secretary of that committee in 2009 election that brought Comrade Jacob Zuma to power. After the 2008 xenophobic attack, we said, why didn't South Africans hello? Are we together?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm trying to tell you that I had something in lieu of a data. Statistics. So the committee had to tour the 9 provinces of South Africa, and there was no place where we did not candidly accept that we were committing crime in South Africa. So we now wrote that report. If you Google it, you will see it. It's on the internet. Igbo lives in South Africa. And we met ANC that, look, we are going to help. We will stop Nigerians from committing crime. Give us a big parcel of land to build a Nigerian market or Igbo market in South Africa as a way of luring these boys from illegitimate business to legitimate business. And the ANC told us, if our people have not gotten land, the liberation struggle was all about redeeming our land from whites. If we give Nigerians land in South Africa, they will kill us.
Okay.
And that was what stopped us. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we know what is going on in South Africa. The data might not be there, but we know what is going on.
All right, Mr. Chiga Chieke. Because of time, what is the next step? What is the next step from here?
Yes, the next step towards mending the Nigeria-South African relation is that one, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu should stop posting political appointees as ambassadors to foreign lands. Let him train